I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall continue to follow me all the days of my life. I will dwell in the house of the most super intelligent power, source, and force of love and creation forever. What's happening? Benton here. Rolling out, midnight driving shift. Haven't done one of these in a while. Just east of Kansas City. Headed to Denver, 623 miles. To the first of what is supposed to be 2 deliveries in that area. We shall see. Who knows? With this scam of a job, well, what else would we expect in scam nation than employment via contract as a scam? Why wouldn't it be? Accept and expect the scam. And that's not advice. It's Benton on Benton, Scagnetti on Scagnetti. Right? It's Benton talking to Benton, which is mostly, let's call it what it is, the royal us. This is the main thrust of these discourses, broadcasts, audio blogs, ramblings, yapping, whatever the fuck it is, all of the above. Counted up my miles, 3,800 miles in the last 7 days. Of course, now that it's midnight, whatever I do today will then become part of that 7 days. So effectively the same amount of miles. And it, hilariously, from the perspective of the company, this is like more or less doing nothing, 3,800 miles, which is funny. And of course, that's part of the gaslighting, and that's certainly often misapplied, and is one of those terms that's losing its meaning or has lost its meaning in a lot of regards. But gaslighting, well, let's not get into that just yet. Because it's funny, because somebody that goes into long haul trucking and starts with no experience with a mega carrier, you know, that would be considered a lot of miles in a week, 3,800. Here it's because there's outlaw companies and the drivers drive 1,000 miles a day apparently, or so I'm told, and I'm sure it happens. So 3,800, that's neither here nor there, right? And that's why we are most likely leaving this job, Royal We. Now, most likely, since this job is a scam, they will just keep working me, probably. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. We may just So then it becomes, how can Benton return the equipment without the company, putting in an abandonment on the record, or do we even care at that point? Who knows? Hard to tell the future. And of course, sweet talked and gaslit all the way. For example, part of the scam is, it's $1,800 a week, and that's, considered like a guarantee, meaning like that's the least you'll make, right? And I know not to fall for this bullshit. It's more or less in one ear and out the other. And until the paychecks start hitting the account, it's all hypothetical anyway. But then you get into, when I was told all of this, I hadn't signed on the dotted line yet. I had not moved into the truck yet, and was then told anything over 3,000 miles is 60 cents a mile, that's low pay if anybody's unclear about that. And I was also told, quote, the company doesn't chase miles, whatever that means. And, I have my own idea of what that meant in that context. Whatever, and it's nothing I care about hearing or not hearing, but the fact is, other than a breakdown and some miscommunication with some of the load scheduling, it's pretty much been 3,400 plus miles, which means there should have been at least one paycheck by now above $1,800. However, there hasn't been. So it's, at what point would the driver then need to say, hey, where's my money? And, Benton, of course, has no issue standing up for himself. It's not even about that. It's about, what does this mean from the perspective of the company? And is anybody even tracking this? And is it all a bunch of lies? So back to the gaslighting, to be told, well, we have drivers doing this, that, and the other thing. Well, I have no knowledge of that. We have drivers making $2,500 to $3,000 a week. Okay, I have no knowledge of that. I mean, that's what that's what I'm being told. Also, well, I have no interest in doing whatever would be required to make that kind of money. So it really doesn't affect me or mean anything. However, depending on the context in which those comments are delivered, it's gaslighting, it's always putting it back on the individual, and the reconciliation of whatever the issue is between the driver and the company. The only way to reconcile it is some version of the driver being treated like they must be crazy. Now, the driver in this case, yours truly, your friendly neighborhood broadcaster and audio blogger and yapper, took it to the streets, street level homelessness for many consecutive years. And if he were going to go crazy, it would have happened well before this. So in some ways, the being is inoculated against going crazy, while simultaneously understanding that would then create a blind spot, where if what may be in the blind spot were not considered, then there would exist the possibility of going crazy. That's part of the not going crazy process, is having taught oneself to look out for thought forms and structures mentally that could cause the being to begin to their thoughts and behavior to begin to manifest in ways that are less than sane. Right. This is all very serious, because remember, what percentage of the populace is de facto mentally ill, solely based on their prescriptions from their doctor or doctors, Oh, well, somebody say, oh, well, I'm just on an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety. Okay, well, that's some form of mental illness, right? Or mood disorder, or, what are we talking about? Maybe not a formal diagnosis. It's something. It's somewhere beyond where old Benton's ever gotten to. But I feel a little bit of the holier than thou. Let's not puff ourselves up by putting others down, and that's never been my style anyway. So feeling with the increasingly sensitive internal space, feeling a little bit of discomfort that may not be wholly appropriate to speak that way. So, and to bring it back to, it's not about the money, because that would be the service of one of two masters, either air quotes so-called God, right? Now, in my case, my individual case within delusion, that would be worshiper and object of worship contained within the same space, always calling himself God or Jesus again. Well, that's what they say if they say that. I said no such thing. As you like it. And I have no control over that anyway. See how it works? Or to serve money. Now, of course, one of the main reasons for doing the job is, of course, money. Now, would I drive a truck to live in the truck? And, if every product that I've decided that I need, air quotes need, were available to me, would I be willing to live without, to live? Would I be willing to perform without money? Sure, absolutely. But maybe not to the degree the company wants. And then also part of the gaslighting is, no matter how well the driver performs, in this case Benton, and no matter how much work the driver does, it's the company's always going to attempt to extract more. So this is an extraction process, and that makes it by nature vampiric. So for me to then seek to extract more money out of the company, is that even appropriate? Right. Now, some may say, well, it's what's right, air quotes right. Well, if the royal we were strictly going by what was right and proper, would the royal we be doing this job at all? Even the accruing of tax liability is probably a violation on some level. Well, let's be clear about that. Is it not? Now, I would say it's well to one's level of understanding, sure. Meaning, perhaps in the past, old Benton here was ignorant to some of these, what Benton now seems to be spiritual certainties. The idea that Christ in the Bible, after baptism, did not work a job, did not accrue tax liability, and did not handle money, as far as we know. What's making noise down there? What is making noise down there? Whoa. Ride 'em, cowboy. Bouncy, bouncy. So more or less what it is you get $1,800 a week. And then probably if I started bringing up more money as I was told, then there will be gaslighting around my understanding or my lack of comprehension about what did that mean, and also probably connected to, then that will be linked to sort of an implication of things that were not technically my fault or doing, like a breakdown and the engine blew up, and okay, I didn't do that, but whatever, okay, so, and then with a $100 a week escrow, so they're stealing $100 a week. Now, perhaps they will choose to pay me back that money. Who knows? That's what, escrow. Even that's probably not correct, because escrow, wouldn't I already have the money and then I would hand it over of my own volition? This is being deducted from my paycheck, but $1,700 a week into the paycheck. Bear with me while we socially engineer a slower driver up ahead, who's probably not a slower driver. They're attempting to put themselves in position to make a group with me. Don't want to be in a group with you. Go ahead and go on about your business, please. Thank you. So just a moment. Yep, they're slowing down. They're about a quarter mile ahead, and they're slowing down. 1/8 of a mile. I slowed down to 57. They're going 57. Trying to get in the group with me. Now they're maybe getting the hint, speeding up. Maybe. But then if I speed up too fast, they'll max that speed. So hang on. Got to get them away from us. Now, who's going to catch us in the meantime that might try to make a group with us? Eventually, the sweet spot will be acquired, and we'll just be able to cruise for the most part. Not yet. All while expected to haul ass to Denver in a slow truck that goes 68 on the cruise control. And I had this thought right before the stream started that this company and the prior company both started me out in a truck at a particular speed, and then within a few weeks I was driving a slower truck, whether that was the same truck that had been turned down, or in this case a different truck. So just that, which has never even occurred to me. It did happen with Balkan, although it was accidental, and the moment I demanded it, they turned the new truck up, after of course trying to talk me into driving it anyway. And yes, now the spiritual attack of the slow driver trying to get in a group with me has been achieved, because they've left the scene because they found another vehicle to get in a group with, but unfortunately a grouping of vehicles has caught up to us, who's then going to seek to add my big rig to their grouping. Now, what do you mean by group? Well, it's cars that drive together so that they can use each other as a frame of reference, so that they can stay on the road and not go off the road and crash. And the reason they do that is so they can mostly stare at their screen and giggle at their feed and text their side piece. So yeah, now we're in a different. So now we've got people trying to make traffic, and this is supposed to be my job, is dealing with all of this, but it's really not my job. My job is all this other nonsense that I'm talking about. So I'll just go 55. I mean, 55 and a 65. Keep America moving. This is your productivity, folks. Because the primary motivation of the motoring public is, how do they need to adapt their driving style to be able to stare at a screen and to then not pay attention to their driving? See? So we're now trapped in a never-ending series of driving with traffic when it's midnight and there should be no traffic. But these are all the same people who, if I get into a conversation with them at the truck stop, they will end it by saying, "Be safe." And I think, well, you're going to try to cling to me. You're going to try to ride on top of me out on the road and make traffic, which is, I would argue, one of the least safe things any of us can do. But okay, be safe. Sure. Got it. Because before screens, when I first started driving, everyone got as far away from big rigs as possible at all times. In fact, the panic of, oh my God, past that big rig, we might get stuck behind it. Oh my God, what are you doing? Why aren't you passing that big rig? Are you crazy? For real. You couldn't even drive in a car with somebody and get into a conversation and forget yourself, because the other person would say, "What are you crazy? Pass this big rig. What is this?" Why am I in the passenger seat of your car and I'm next to the tandem axles of a big rig? Like, what are you trying to kill us? Everybody knew this. And if they didn't know, somebody would tell them. And let's all pretend like it's a proper country. Let's pretend like America, American jobs, the American workforce, American productivity is anything other than the clown shoes shambles that it is. It's a clown shoes shambles. You know, if I work, you know, if I look at my last 7 days and it's 70 hours, although it's more than that, but I mean 70 hours on duty, that's $18 an hour if you would count for time and a half. It's $18 an hour, which shows you what this job is considered to be. That's minimum wage. They say, no, it's not. Well, it is in some areas, but, you know, I would say, you know, can somebody live on that? Oh, well, you're not supposed to live on you know, McDonald's wages or whatever that is. Well, that's what McDonald's pays in most cases. Not all cases. So you see how that becomes gaslighting. The so-called conventional wisdom of the past. Oh, well, you know, you're not supposed to work minimum wage. Okay, well, what if the price of everything goes up to where minimum wage de facto more or less becomes $16 or $18 an hour? What then? What do you do then? I'm just gonna, at this point, I'm just gonna ride in the hammer lane, and if I'm not legal here and they pull me over, I'll just tell the cop what's going on. I say, these people, nobody will use the hammer lane because they associate it with tickets. The people in the other two lanes are driving like complete insane persons, and I chose to escape to the hammer lane that nobody's using in order to get away from these people. So, write the ticket. I don't know what to tell you. And I'm probably going to do it again. I got a car next to me. I go 55, they go 55. I go 73 down the hill, they go 73. They're just doing whatever I'm doing. Oh, that's right. The NPC normie normalizes everything that's not incongruous. I forgot. Thank you, normie, for normalizing big rigs going various speeds because of hills and, you know, the driving dynamics of the vehicle. Thank you, NPC normie. That's a helpful contribution to society. Appreciate it, normie NPCs. You're as helpful as always. We thank you. But again, let's defend that. Defend that as a society that anybody would want to live in, or in the case of another YouTube channel, who's probably just doing satire at this point. It's hard to say. I did not get to watch the live stream. Shout out to Chalk Body Outline, Breed Whitey Breed. Interesting title for a stream. And then going to his comment section, and somebody's like, "Yeah, we." Without the air quotes, we do need more children. It's like, well, okay, number one, who is we? Number two, need them for what? Oh, well, Benton, please don't drag us into your Russian nesting doll, never-ending series of specific context. Oh, okay, for the purposes of the discussion, it's happening within a person who's a hoarder shut-in who doesn't leave their home, their imagination and their remembrances of what they were programmed to believe society is when they were socialized, and therefore always will be, in which, it's it's the Cold War, it's America as good guy, it's society's mostly good, it's got some problems, but on the whole it serves people well, all of this nonsense. It's like, no, that never was true in the first place, but certainly by now everyone can acknowledge that's simply not the case. All of that American pie, mom apple pie, American exceptionalism. Didn't we all get the Republican Party memo back during Bush Cheney? I guess not. I thought everybody got, and people are confused as to how the so-called Democrats in Biden's poopy diaper have been able to, if that's who's blamed for ruining the country, how was that possible? Oh, we've forgotten the 8 years of Bush Cheney, I guess. That's what made it possible. It was the Republican Party performing and behaving in such nightmarish, reprehensible ways that anything else was preferable. That's how. The populace either never got that memo or was never aware of it. That's what unlocked the so-called Democrats, on behalf of the system, for the system's own purposes. That's what allowed it to happen, was what the Republicans did under Bush Cheney. And then people say, oh, well, those weren't real Republicans. Oh, okay, the same as those aren't real Christians argument. Oh, okay, well, those weren't real Christians. Those aren't real Republicans. Oh, okay, well, then it's fine. They did it in the name of Republicans. But I guess, in fact, there never was a... So who was the president for 8 years? Because it wasn't a Republican, apparently. What party held the presidency from, what years was that? 2001 to 2009. Or just call it 2000 to 2008 then. And now I see millennials and Gen Z can't understand that it's not the 2008 financial crisis or crash or recession. No, it's 0809 because it spanned it started at the tail end of W. Bush, and then it continued into Obama. And Obama became president in 09. So it's the 0809 crisis. Meanwhile, Larry Summers, one of the villains of the financial crisis, well, he's still around. See, that was back during the Occupy Wall Street and the Taxed Enough Already stuff, where the major outrage of Americans was, because remember, I studied all of this. I followed all this every single motherfucking day for the entirety of the financial crisis. So what America was mad about was huge bonuses paid to executives and CEOs of financial institutions, while simultaneously they were all apparently being bailed out by the taxpayer, which even that was gaslighting and not true. Not entirely true. It was partially truth and partially lies, and there's really no reason to even cover that. Of course, the gaslighting is, to even mention this, people will say, oh, well, they paid that money back. It's like, well, what are you talking about? Paid what money back? Could you be more specific? And if they can't be more specific, it's like, well, you don't even know what you're talking about. There was multiple bailouts. Which one was paid back? Do you mean TARP? Not only was it, air quotes, paid back, they allocated $700 billion and only ever actually dispersed $350 billion. So, do you really think that was the bailout? What are you talking about? Right? And I think I'm taking the wrong exit. Yeah, I am. Just took the wrong exit, of course, because this shit's confusing. Now here's a helpful car out of nowhere to jump on top of me in case I need to take other exits. And I would cite my own distraction in conjunction with the confusing signage. Of course, the signage is designed for when there's a shitload of cars on the road. It's not really designed for. Can I take this exit? Is the question. Unclear. Will that help us? Probably not. And there's more cars to jump on top of us. There's nobody on this road, by the way. I mean, nobody. There's not a single car in front of me. Because the realm never fails to kick you when you're down. We all know that. Oh, a confused trucker doesn't know which exit, which lane to get in? Get him! Get him! Pounce! Pounce! Somebody going downtown at 1 a.m. I'm sure that's for only good purposes, right? Because now we're taking a downtown exit, looping back around here. Again, the deserted roads. There's hardly anybody out here, but there just happens to be cars just on top of me everywhere I go as I make these, go through this series of confusing interchanges, just right on top of me, while doing their best to not show where they may be going. They don't want to commit to anything to further be able to attack whatever I might be doing. And it is an adversarial society in that way. AAD, assertion, aggression, dominance. Who or what can be attacked at any given moment. See? Anything to avoid internalizing and dealing with the internal space. Anything to avoid that. More magical cars. Oh, you want to make lane changes? Here's some magical cars. Let's see. And, to remind oneself that, again, waking dreams, surrealistic, unreality. This shit ain't real. It's never completely real. And, that's to gaslight oneself, treat it like it's possibly real. And, hypothetically, I don't have the drive time to waste on this. Oh, well. If drive time was important, why are they going to have me driving vast expanses of wide open road? Vast expanses of wide open road as another car just magically comes up beside me as I go 41 miles an hour and blocks me from my lane change. Just magically appeared perfectly there. So now we begin to see how I maybe missed the exit in the first place. And of course, the GPS says go straight, and I went straight, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm staring at the GPS, as distracted as I may be, and watching myself take what ended up being the wrong road. So I don't know what to tell you. How much time did that waste? I guess about 5 minutes. And now the cars that would be on top of me going 41 miles an hour are on top of me. We're going 70. We're going 71 and a 55. And they're just right there on top of me. But if I was going 41, trying to figure out my exit, they'd be going, oh, now they're going to pass me. Wow, even better. They'd be right on top of me going, 41 miles an hour. may just be drunk, which is possible at this hour. And again, the gaslighting will just be more or less, Benton will be blamed. Well, suck it up, and that's your job, and this and that. Well, I'm making observations about the behavior of the other so-called beings in society, and I'm linking that up with notions around proper society. I just realized I forgot to eat my dark chocolate, damn it. I knew something was missing. I feel a little, I've been feeling like something's missing this whole time. Okay, now we're on the correct road. Now we're there. Good deal. Anyways, I had a lot to say about whatever all that was, except now the missing of my exit, which happens at some point to everybody, no matter what we do as truckers. At least the ones who don't memorize all of the roads. And I've never been a person that bothered to attempt to do any of that. But yeah, back to the idea of turning the truck down, while simultaneously, wanting, but the company will never just say, the company's always very careful to avoid directly telling the driver to hurry up when it comes to driving the big rig, because that could become criminal. You get into liability around getting sued, and then you also get into criminality. That could end up being criminal, right? Conceivably. But they know how to send the message. And at a certain point, I remember on my last job with Sun Transportation Systems, it was basically like they gave me a real tight window, and I was like, well, I'll do my best, but I'm not promising anything. They just slowed my truck down, and now they want things done faster. Like, that doesn't even make sense. And of course, dispatch has no idea. They're like, oh, what speed do your truck go? 68 miles an hour. What? It used to go 75, now it goes 68. Like, what do you mean? So to turn the truck down 7 miles an hour and then, simultaneously tell me to hurry up without telling me to hurry up. So more gaslighting. Because anything I say about it will be turned around on me, and I will be not told that I'm crazy. I will be treated as if I were crazy. Same thing with, and that becomes a cudgel or a weapon pretty quickly. Like, why would I even bother to bring up the money, the extra money, only to be further gaslit, not paid the money? See? Like, what's the point? And have no desire to even drive 3,800 miles. If it was up to me, I would happily drive 2,500 a week, live in a truck, make $800 after taxes a week. Of course, I don't want to be paying taxes, but that's a whole other matter. And these people can't even maintain their speed. It's been 3 days of 3 days in a row of people switching lanes in front of me and then going slower than I'm going. It's happening right now. Yes, 3 days in a row, 3 to 4 days in a row of this. Now I'm going to end up passing this guy. Well, why is he pulling it? And now half of it is they don't understand that. They don't know in their conscious mind that half of them are trying to get hit so they can get a settlement. Like for real. They are trying to get hit by a big rig, whether they know it or not. And now we're going to make a group. We're going to drive together so he can look at his screen. Oh, wow. Are you actually going to take the exit? Fantastic. Get the fuck out of here. See, there's the one time he may have actually had a valid reason for the way he was driving. See, every once in a while, it's just like, oh, okay, well, I understand why he did all of that. 99% of the time, it's not. There's no reason for what's happening, other than the realm always spiritually attacking. Always be spiritually attacking. It's kill or be killed. See? Attack or be attacked. You know. So a big part of the Christ story from the Bible is what happens if the being just refuses or chooses not to attack, right? Except maybe in the case of the money changers and all of that, and then maybe certain statements that could be construed some type of way, but you know what I mean. I mean it's overall aggression. And while simultaneously to accept and expect the attacks, of the realm and the people and the government and society. And then the idea of the facilitation of the resurrection of the risen Christ within me in order to uncover and walk the perfected path that lies within. To do all of that. Come what may. And that's the situation with leaving this job is, yeah, there's an amount of money that will facilitate some things temporarily, but at the end of the day, it's nowhere to run to, nowhere to hide. Now we're back to shout out to Chalk Body Outline and his YouTube channel and the idea of breed, whitey, breed. Well, Benton recognizes if he had the motivation of a wife and children, or even just the motivation of court-mandated child support, or whatever that would be, that would tie him to the job. Well, the fact is, I'm physically capable of doing the job. Now, it's required some babysitting and hand-holding ever since I hit the wall of exhaustion 2 weeks ago now, or whatever it was. And, yesterday, and really the company, again, in this extracting of resources, they're going to need me to be exhausted at the end of each work shift. And then to spend what? So that they then extract the entirety of my work break, because it then becomes necessary for me to, during the 10-hour break, to get a minimum amount of rest that in the past wasn't necessary. I didn't need to rest for almost the entirety of my 10 hours. So then also, if I was going to, take a shower every day, whatever that was going to be, right? And then I have my own morning routine, which cuts into the 10 hours. And then remember, expected to get the truck fixed on the 10-hour break. If anything needs to be fixed, that's expected to be done. Well, what if the driver physically has to rest during in this case, I rested, I don't even know, it was like 16 hours, 2 days in a row. Now, surprise, surprise, I wouldn't have been able to do the job I think I probably would have been physically unable to perform. So it's funny how Moloch's machine and industrial and post-industrial society. It's funny how it just sort of knows how far it can push, and it's always going to go up to that as far to that line as possible. Now, in certain economic times, if the rates are certain, are high enough, the greed of the company can sort of outweigh that, and the driver, as I found in the past, I could sort of dictate the terms of my own employment a little more strongly, and just be like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Sort of kick my feet, stomp my feet and get my way, and that's versus now this job is a scam, gaslit all along the way, and it's, I'll be driven forth as a beast of burden, as much as possible. So then to serve the master of money or mammon instead of air quotes so-called God would be to allow myself, it would then be to accept and expect the beating of being driven forth. Now, if as a beast of burden, if the motivator for being driven forth as a beast of burden was a wife and children to support, well, then now the being may be more amenable to accepting and expecting to be driven forth as a beast of burden, and then to just say, well, suck it up, buttercup, that's the way it is. And, you should be thankful and grateful for these sadistic Eastern Europeans, these Eastern European sadists, to work for under contract. And, there is no free time if during what's supposed to be free time, I'm such a basket case that my brain doesn't really work because of extreme exhaustion. This is not normal, just somebody put in a day's work and, we're tired. It's not that. This is actual fucking serious fatigue, cognitively affecting the cognition, the decision making, the coordination, the physicality, the whole thing. It's so bad at a certain point, I'm thinking, what if I got pulled over and because of my fatigued behavior, the officer wants to give me a field sobriety, I probably wouldn't be able to pass it. And some would say, well, you can't pass it anyway. I mean, whatever. The point is I'd probably refuse it. It's just like, well, clearly I'm not going to be able to perform that in this condition. Because the law says, intoxicated, it's or impaired. It's a certain blood alcohol content or impaired. Right. Or impaired. Well, exhaustion, wouldn't that be an impairment? So a lot of this driving, I'm not even really supposed to do it. Now, the fact that my brain can safely drive on autopilot, still be vigilant. It's part of the skill I bring to the gig, certainly. Where is my coffee? And, I still have something to compare all of this to, which is most of my other truck driving job. So it's not me just, he's, thinks he's special or whatever. Yeah, believe me, I know I'm special. What I am is certainly special, but that's not the point. And then the fact is, if we set aside the paying of federal and state income taxes and the W-2 side of it, I'm not employable by these W-2 companies that don't try to directly kill the driver at the level of exhaustion to extract the most out of them. And the fact is, a lot of them want to work that. They want to work like that because they are, with what's going on economically, they want to, all they care about is if they're away from their families, they always want to be earning maximum money. But again, back to the more run-of-the-mill easy jobs, W-2 jobs, they need me on a hamster wheel. They need me having a conventional life because the system demands, whatever, the person to have a life as far as, they take home time every 2 or 3 weeks. These are their hobbies. This is their social media. This is their friend group. This is their family. This is why, these are all the reasons they do this job. What Benton is can't be run through any of that because none of that is my motivations for having employment. It's not status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups, and it's none of that. And financial obligation, it's none of that. And so the employer can't account for that when they look at my employment record. They can't talk to me and say, well, here's somebody who has no tickets, no accidents, no criminal record, no mental health record, always gets a 2-year DOT medical card. So basically on paper, other than my credit score, no problems whatsoever. They can't reconcile my gaps in employment. And they can't just listen to me and say, okay, well, it's because once I get to a certain amount of money, I don't need to work. So why would I keep working? Their heads explode. They're very suspicious of that, and it does not compute. It's like, yeah, okay. I stayed out 6 months or whatever. I took no home time, and then I had $10,000 in my pocket or whatever. And it's like, then I have other things I want to do, so I went and did other things. I can describe the other things I did, but they're not going to make any sense to you, sir, because you live on a hamster wheel. You wouldn't know what to do without the hamster wheel. See, the person I'm talking to on the phone, they wouldn't know what to do with themselves without status quo, social contract, peer groups, and the hamster wheel. They don't understand, yeah, I might choose to sleep in my car parked on the streets of Los Angeles in Echo Park, Los Angeles, walk around all day, look at, peep at rocks, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan once made fun of Whitey for doing, peeping at rocks, peeping at concrete buildings that somebody spray painted graffiti onto them. And I might just want to walk around and anthropologically have a cultural experience, or I might want to go stay in a hotel in San Francisco, God forbid. They say, oh my God, everything's so expensive. It's a motherfucking bargain to stay in a hotel for $150 in San Francisco and to be able to take public transit, to park my car at a BART station, take the BART, walk around San Francisco, hotel, go back to the BART station, drive the car around just enough to be able to park for another 24 hours at the BART station, take the fucking public transit back to San Francisco, and then stay in a hotel room and have all of that flexibility. Just walk around and do what? Whatever the fuck I want. See, psychologically, the individual can't even process that. How are you going to put that on your social media? How are you going to explain that to friends and family? How are you going to status quo, and not you, the listener? How is one going to status quo, social contract, conform to peer groups? Right? How is that free? Freedom is, I like to go to cities and walk around cities and see what the fuck's going on. Oh my God, what a scandal. Can you believe this man? And yeah, I know it was far worse in San Francisco in 2016 today. How do I know? Because I went there and walked the fuck around day after day after day after day. Whether it was sleeping in my car, outside the city, or whether it was pitching a tent in Golden Gate Park and then packing my shit up the next morning at 5 a.m. and getting the fuck out of there. Guess who doesn't give a flying fuck if pretty much anybody pitches a tent in Golden Gate Park, as long as they, conduct themselves properly and don't leave a mess. And, especially if they'll pack their shit and get the fuck out of Dodge in the morning. Nobody gives a fuck. Nobody that lives there gives a fuck. I know because I've done it, and they walk past because I tend to go to sleep at night. Yeah, the sun ain't even down. And oh, look, here's somebody pitching a tent. And then they walk by the next day, that tent's gone. Okay. Why would they care? Now, again, what's MAGA country like? They go into hysterics if they see a tent. And here come the jackbooted oppressor thugs. So the homeless people that used to be hidden were hidden because they knew to hide, because that's what the local people demanded of them. Go be homeless somewhere else. Meaning go make your camp in the bushes, and we ain't coming in the bushes. And get your minds out of the gutter. Because that's not what I'm talking about. Lord knows the chalk body outline comment section and audience would have something to say about an idea of coming in the bushes. The off the charts levels of repressed homosexuality going on over there, but we don't need to get into that. That certainly has nothing. That's no reflection on the broadcaster, Mr. Drew World Order, whom the royal we certainly has the utmost respect for, lest we all forget. It bears repeating, certainly. But back to the breed, Whitey breed. Well, what does that look like? So, Whitey bred. Larry Benton stuck his dick in Debbie Benton, and here came Benton, right? And when Larry Benton did that, in the cultural context in which that occurred, that was a symbol on some level of his domination, his flesh dominating her flesh. And then culturally, the man dominated the woman. So that they then got pregnant with me, got married, right? They bred, and then they did what society demanded of them at the time. My father, through nepotism and all of these things. Of course, my father worked hard and was responsible and was law-abiding, and all of this. It's a big part of what it is to so-called be a Benton and all of this, which leads me to believe I would have been the same. I see a lot of people who are very irresponsible and have children, and I find that confusing, but, whatever. Okay. But in 2025, if I was 30 years old and culturally still came from the Deep South and this was modeled to me, is it possible, number one, this only works if my mother chooses to submit to my father, because she's free to run off. She's free to behave in ways in which at some point he's going to kick her out, right? He can't force her to stay, right? But society can force her to stay at the level of status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups. So she's compelled to submit to his domination. And so that was what was modeled to Benton. And even though Benton never made children, Benton had 2 marriages, and you can say, how did that work out? Well, it worked out great for me, and I guess you'd have to ask her. I don't know that either one of them would be unhappy, but we don't even need to get into that. But the fact is, they were both socialized in a context of they wanted to find a man to dominate them so they could submit to their man. That's what they were taught to do. I was taught in the context of a man getting married to dominate my woman. Now, that doesn't mean mistreat her. Dominate. The man dominates, the woman submits. And then the religion says God, man, woman, child, animal. That's a hierarchy. See? So good luck with this legal system fellas going out there and breeding whitey breed. What breed whitey breed would lead to is slave away on a hamster wheel for corporations, and best case scenario, come home to a woman who chooses to submit to you while knowing in the back of her mind, anytime she wants to, she can flip the script, right? She can flip the script, and the feminism that's now built into society and pervades all of society, she's never not going to be receiving messages that tell her that she's supposed to more or less rule the roost. Okay. Now here's how she can rule the roost. She can call the motherfucking jackbooted oppressor thugs in and have him removed from his home anytime she wants. The fact is, if my mother had been insane enough to call the cops on my father, not that he ever did anything, but if she called the cops, you would have had two men with guns standing there looking at my gigantic, scary father, and what would have been unsaid was, I hope y'all understand this is my show, and I'm going to continue to run it regardless of what y'all think about it. And that's just the way it is, buddy. Meaning, if you think you can come here and deal with Larry Benton, good luck to you. Because Larry Benton can body slam either one of you. Now, that doesn't need to be physical, see. It doesn't have to be that my father could have physically body slammed 9 out of 10 of the cops that came to his door. And if the other one needed to be body slammed, he could have body slammed that one too. That's neither here nor there. That's not the point. The point is that was true whether it was physically true or not. Even if it was a 5'10", 150-pound Benton, the spirit of someone that could body slam them was still there, right? And I worked with a guy in a call center many years ago who was a former cop who grew up in Arkansas, and at a certain point, his woman called the cops. The cops showed up, and he just told them to their face, if y'all think you're going to take my kids away from me, you're not going to be able to handle me. Meaning, you're not going to physically be able to deal with what I'm about to do. And this is somebody who physically ran around Little Rock, Arkansas, which had and still has one of the highest violent crime rates in the country. And he physically chased down meth heads and physically fucking arrested them, because this is something in the sort of, Mississippi River Delta culture. To be a man has to be able to perform certain things. And that goes hand in hand with the domination of his woman. He has to be able to stand in the doorway, cock his head, and deal with whatever shows up. Whatever that is, whether it's somebody breaking the window at 2 a.m. thinks they're going to victimize his children or his wife. And so, whether Chalk Body Outline understands it or not, when he does a stream that says breed whitey breed, he doesn't. Does he understand? I have no idea. I can't speak for Drew. He's not speaking to a group of males who have that in them anymore. That hasn't been beaten into them. It's not there anymore. Now, it's there for his hoarder shut-in audience who's, look, I'm on the younger end of this thing. And I grew up in a time warp in Southeast Arkansas, right? I caught the tail end of, I was able to have 2 marriages, and these women wanted me to be dominant. That they weren't going to be able to respect a man who wasn't dominant over them. Now, surprise, surprise, 0 times were the authorities called on Benton. Now, if Benton was 35 years old today, if Benton was 50, right? If Benton got married at the age of 20 and was now 35, there's no versions of him cohabitating with a woman, and she doesn't understand that she holds the veto power because the state's going to back her play no matter what. All she's got to do is call the cops. Now all power goes to her favor. And if she wants to, divorce and child support and maybe alimony. See? And so now hamster wheel. But okay, breed whitey breed. Sign myself up for slavery and be used as a wallet. Now, surprise, surprise, Benton never put himself in that position. See? And in Arkansas, it's so backwards, what even would have been child support, you know, it's almost comically laughable to this day. It's so ridiculously tiny. But if a person has 7 children, it ends up being a lot of money, right? Meanwhile, I worked with a guy in Bentonville, Arkansas, and because his woman divorced him, took his kids and ran to California, state of California took his entire paycheck. He was getting paid in Arkansas. They took his whole check. Now, I'm sure he hired a lawyer, and with what money, but hired a lawyer and got it all rectified. And this is not, I'm not complaining about any of this. I'm saying, in my view, a man would have to be in motherfucking sane or have such a strong pimp hand to say, well, and maybe Drew has it like that, and that's not my business. It's none of my business. And, you know, I applaud him for doing what he's doing, but to then say to other people, breed whitey breed, that's going to end in complete catastrophe for 7 out of 10 males. It's going to end in complete catastrophe. I mean, for society, for them, for the woman, for the children. It's going to be a catastrophe for the children. It's going to be a catastrophe for everybody except corporations and government and Moloch's machine. So whether Drew understands it or not, what he is prescribing here, and now he might say, well, Benton, you didn't watch the stream, so that's actually not what I said to do. Well, okay, fair enough. Maybe this is merely a thought experiment. Either way, it still should be discussed, in my view. It should be discussed that this isn't even possible, right? To do all of these things. But because Benton was taught to be dominant, because Benton has historically high levels of testosterone, and that's also correlated with dominance, right? And because Benton, when he cohabitated with females, he was the king of the castle, right? And we see this Akash stuff, and that never could happen to Benton. And if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. But it's a guy who earns a lot of money in entertainment, and now his wife is, I don't like this term because it's not, this isn't what this means, but she's air quotes cucking him, and she's humiliating him through her social media, and he's letting it happen. Well, the reality is, the first time I became aware that she was doing TikToks humiliating me, I wouldn't come home to her. The first time it happened, I would not come home that day. And then I wouldn't say anything to her, and then I would ignore her communications. And then when I did communicate with her, I would just be like, she would be like, what's wrong? Why are you acting so weird? And I wouldn't do anything except make her state plainly to me what has happened. And then eventually, out of her own mouth, she would understand that she had been humiliating me. She would apologize for it. She would say, wow, I didn't understand why that would bother you. And then she would come crawling back to me, and then I would come back home to be king of the castle, and she could be my queen. Until a month goes by and she starts tripping again, and then I don't come home again. And that's the only thing they understand, fellas. Brute force. They don't understand anything beyond that. So part of the reason none of my women ever called the cops on me is, number one, of course, I never did anything for them to call the cops. Number two, they knew not to. They knew how serious that would be. Right? They knew how serious that would be true. Now, some guys will say, oh, that's a shit test, and that's a this, and that's a that. It doesn't matter what it is. You know, you can call it, I predate the term simp, but the reality is, I never put up with any of that bullshit for 5 seconds. because I'm not the type of person who will put up with that type of bullshit. Therefore, it was never in my life. Surprise, surprise. My woman starts acting like she's single, and I'm just going to start dating. That happened to me with ex-wife number 2. We weren't married yet. We were living together. She met some new friend. My ex-wife number 2 was very impressionable, very much a follower. Next thing I know, she's going out to the clubs and the bars with her new lady friend. I took one look at that, and I started dating a chick. Within days, I was seeing another woman while I was living with the woman who became my wife. We were living together. I started dating, and I stopped coming home to her. I stopped going to my residence. Actually, that's not true. We weren't living together yet. My apologies. We later on lived together in that same apartment. We weren't yet living together. But I just right away started dating somebody else, and when she was like, hey, man, what the fuck? I said, well, you're living like you're single. Do you really think I'm going to keep pretending like you're my girlfriend? And you're going out doing God knows what? Are you crazy? I just told her that. And then she immediately knocked it the fuck off and was basically like, what do you need me to do? I said, well, that new friend of yours, I don't care if you're friends with her. You can't hang out with her and do what she's doing and have me as a boyfriend. I mean, obviously, I don't care if you're friends with her. I don't give a fuck. I'm not going to tell you what to do. But I know this: you ain't going to be going out meeting new dudes and doing whatever you're doing, and you think I'm not going to start meeting chicks. I got 10 chicks wanting to date me right now. Are you crazy? I had 10 women that I could have made my girlfriend. That's not an exaggeration. I'm not trying to brag. That was my reality at the time. How do you think I found this one? Right? And if a man ain't living that way, he can't have a situation, even if he's Akash and he's wealthy, and not wealthy, but he's making a high income in entertainment. If he ain't got a bunch of broads that he can make his girlfriend tomorrow, how can his current chick respect him? Meanwhile, he doesn't even have to have it that way. He just has to, the moment she starts tripping, he don't come home. Because he knows he's got the money to go stay at the fucking Ritz-Carlton downtown or the Embassy Suites. You know, we had an Embassy Suites in our town. I didn't even have enough money to go stay at the Embassy Suites for more than a night or two. But imagine if I made enough money I'll go stay in the Embassy Suites for a week. I like staying in nice hotels. Why wouldn't I? Unlike the majority of the so-called truth community, I don't think about hotels and all the creepy shit that people do them. I don't think about that and go, ooh, gross. I don't think about what other people do in a hotel room. It doesn't occur to me what they might be doing in there. I don't think about it. I just think about, oh, this is cool. I like this. This is nice. Here I am. I don't go, ooh, gross. I don't think that way. And so ultimately, the only thing the man has in his corner is a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. And that's true. It's worse. She wants a man. But I mean an actual dominant man. An actual dominant man. Now, society won't necessarily let her have that without seeking to undermine it. Other chicks won't let her have that without trying to undermine it, because they might want her man. See? Do you see how it works? So until the man understands all of this and is prepared to counteract all of this, he has no chance whatsoever. The cops are going to show up and remove him from his home in handcuffs. And then if it's anytime his wife wants to, she's going to divorce him, and she's going to sign him up to pay a portion of his paycheck to her and enslave him. And the corporations are going to enslave him. But yeah, breed, whitey, breed. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Meanwhile, I went to Utah in the late 90s, early 2000s, and me and a fellow installed an inventory management system at a bookstore, a college bookstore, Southern Utah University, And these gorgeous, amazing, incredible Mormon chicks flirted with me. One of them took me on as close of a thing to a date as you can get. And this is all a recruiting pitch. Oh, look, a white man with testosterone, and maybe his sperm works. Maybe it doesn't, and I suspect mine doesn't, but maybe it does. Maybe he's sterile. Maybe he's fertile, rather. Let's keep him for ourselves, and he can serve the LDS church, and he can serve our community of white folks. And I agree. That was a very, that was appealing. It doesn't work, Drew, without the culture there to support it. So yeah, and I had the thought, because listen to this. These three gorgeous women, three of them wrote me a fucking letter. How did they get my, I don't know. They got my address in Arkansas, wrote me a letter, and I thought to myself, if I was able to pretend to believe the Mormon nonsense, I would 100% move my happy ass to Utah, marry one of these broads, and start having children. 100% I would do this. Absolutely, but I can't pretend to go along with this, because I knew enough about LDS and Mormonism, and was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, which is very similar in the cultish aspects. I said, yeah, I can't sign myself up for this. If I could have, I would have. 100%. Absolutely. So yes, when the things that are there that appeal to a man's biology and blow smoke up his ass that he's in charge, and even though it's all in service of Moloch's machine, yeah, men do that. And surprise, surprise, American society, when it suited American society, it provided all of that. It still does, sort of, in a way. But meanwhile, why was my 30-year-old dispatcher at 3 jobs ago now, why was he driving 2 hours a day, 1 hour each way, to take his 2 boys to school and to pick them up after school? Is because his wife had enough of him, and she knew that she can become the boss anytime she wants, even though they're both culturally Arkansan and Southern. She wears the pants. Or he couldn't allow her to wear the pants, so she power played his ass, and now they're, he's just gonna do whatever he's got to do to be in his boy's life, and good on him. And she's living her best life, getting fucked and chucked by Chad probably. And meanwhile, I met the guy. He's a Chad Light. See, Chad Light used to be good enough. A Southern boy could play football, have testosterone, be 6 foot tall, strapping, and, know how to stand up for himself and back his own play and be the king of his castle. That ain't enough anymore. Now they need what? 6 figures, way over 6 feet tall and 6-pack abs, right? And meanwhile, this guy had like these insanely ridiculous bright white cap teeth, because he's trying to live some version of the looks maxim, right? Like, meanwhile, I'm 50, and Gen X, some of that was the whole metrosexual thing, right? And to be Southern and 50 years old, it was sort of making fun of this whole idea of metrosexuality. Well, then my dispatcher from Fort Smith, Arkansas, sort of is a metrosexual on some level 20 years later. Surprise, surprise. And kind of everybody in there was, because I would go in that office and I was turned off by just how everybody's hygiene was a little too perfect. It was a little too much product. The clothes were a little too new, a little too laundered, a little too pressed. The males, in my day, it would have been like half a fag. Like, what is this? Why are these people this? What is this? What? And, Arkansas culture historically was sort of if you tucked your shirt in, somebody would say, what are you dressed up for? And I'm like, what do you mean? I look good with my shirt tucked in. What are you talking about? And so The American, the mom apple pie American exceptionalism MAGA crowd doesn't understand that they become all of these things that they find ridiculous. Oh, metrosexuality, ridiculous. Yeah, and in 20 years, your sons will be capping their their way too white teeth and using way too much product. It's just going to take 20 years. Yeah, but yeah, their father's going to laugh at metrosexuality, right? And they still laugh at old Benton. That's fine. They laughed at me back then. I'm sure they did. But they couldn't really laugh at me because, I had too much testosterone and I would just gotten in their face. So that's the thing about, what are you going to do when you get half the chuckle out of your mouth and the person is in your face going, oh, really? Just looking at you some type of way. Same thing with this truck driving. In my previous parts of my truck driving career, they really couldn't do too much to me because I'm in their face going, oh, really? Oh, really, buddy? And I'll tell them on the phone, like, hey, you can't talk to me like that. But either way, I'm still, subjected to humiliation and gaslighting, and I'm subjecting myself to, for what? In exchange for living in a truck and for money, right? What master is being served? Now, arguably, it's still the spirit of what I am being served. But do you see that it's effectively impossible? It's not impossible, but it's damn near impossible for a fellow to breed whitey breed without marrying the state. Because make no mistake, she's marrying you and the state, fellas. She's not marrying you. She's already married to the state. Now, not all of them, and I don't want to talk to Drew's specific situation. Are there people like Drew there's always going to be people, let's leave Drew out of it. There's always going to be people who are able to pull it off while being the king of their own castle and having a woman that submits to them. Yeah, of course. And that's an actual Chad on some level. A functional Chad, whether they're seen that way or not. Right? Maybe, and I don't know, I haven't met Drew. Probably, maybe he is. I don't fucking know. Now, some would say, well, true Chad is not going to get married, not going to do this, not going to do that. It's not exactly true, man. Not every guy is a piece of shit who just wants to bang a bunch of broads. Not everybody is that, right? My father certainly, if he wanted to just bang a bunch of broads, never would have had a problem. If I wanted to bang a bunch of broads, yeah, I would have had to put in a little more work than my dad. Not a lot. A little more, sure. And some of that is how picky is the fella, but you see what I'm saying here. Chad Light used to be enough. And then if Chad Light learns to sort of lean into the more dominant aspect, most of us want to be nice guys. You just can't be a nice guy. It's just not an option, right? A man might want to be good to his woman. Well, but what he thinks is good is not good from her perspective. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. People might think I'm insane, but I convinced ex number 2, it took me years, but I convinced her to leave Arkansas and to go backpacking around the country with me. Now, we started out in a vehicle, but I had thousands of dollars from a medical research study, but, the money ran out, of course, eventually. And she entrusted her safety to me. And then I, of course, took on responsibility for her and for me. And then at a certain point, I vividly remember this, and we were pitching our camp near the train tracks in the 101 freeway in Santa Barbara County, which, yeah, it's Santa Barbara County, but it does have crime. It is dangerous. And she felt some type of way about it. She probably felt vulnerable. And in fact, danger did appear later on, a couple of nights later. And she started tripping out of nowhere right before bedtime. And she got this crazed look on her face. It looked like she was going to come at me, and she exposed her throat to me. And I realized in this moment, oh, she needs me to show her that I'm still capable of protecting her. See? Because remember, fellas, if I can't deal with, she knows she ain't shit on some level. If I can't deal with her, how in the world how am I going to protect her from the big bad world? So I gently and lovingly wrapped my gigantic, strong hand. Remember, I still had the muscles back then, but my hands are just as gigantic and strong to this day. I wrapped my comically gigantic for my size hand around her throat, and I gently and lovingly directed her onto her back on the ground, and I made eye contact with her and basically was, without saying it, said, is this what you need? Is this enough? Like, is this what you need? Are we good? Are we good? Are we good? We're good? Are we good? And then she sort of nodded, yeah, we're good. And I gently backed away, and then everything was fine, right? No part of me needed that. No part of me felt like a big tough guy. None of it. Now, a couple of nights later, surprise, surprise, some 6'2", 225-pound bozo with a pit bull showed up looking for homeless people. And I had to be capable of standing there and dealing with him and dealing with his pit bull while she stayed in the sleeping bag, while he sized me up and decided if there was anything worth him trying to take from me. And, because this was certainly a predatory type of person, and probably he realized, well, maybe he could fight me to the motherfucking death. And I don't really have anything, and is it worth it to take whatever, to have his way with the woman? Probably not. After the pit bull found us first, and when he walked up, I was physically dealing with his pit bull, meaning I was growling and snarling at the fucking pit bull, letting the pit bull know, hey, if you want to fight to the death, I guess we're gonna fight to the fucking. I'll physically fight you to the death if I need to. Whatever. Yeah, you'll get my arm and I'll rip your throat out. And they say, what do you mean? Yeah, I can physically rip a pit bull's throat out. I don't know what to tell you. Yes, I'm physically capable of ripping a pit bull's throat out with my bare hands. I don't know what to tell you. I'm able to do that. Absolutely. Unequivocally. While it's biting down on my arm and I'm not feeling the pain. So yeah, if it decides to, I will give it my left forearm, which is shockingly my dominant hand, but I'm going to need my right hand to rip its throat out. Because that's my strong hand. And I will just squeeze its throat, and my fingers will, bit by bit, I will tear its throat out, and it will die. Now, do I want to do this? No. Will I feel like a big tough guy? No. But the pit bull will be dead. And at some point, the jaws will relax enough, and I'll have my arm back. And then at some point, everything will be over with, and then somebody will tend to my wounds. That's a man, right? And now, again, just talking about killing what passes for a living thing, my increasingly sensitive internal space is letting me know that that's not even appropriate. So I would only kill the pit bull if absolutely necessary. Otherwise, I would, but probably it would be necessary, because what happens if it decides to release from my arm? At what point am I just not going to have an arm? If it releases from my arm, attacks again, and I give it my forearm again, it's like at a certain point, I don't have a forearm, right? But yeah, again, my increasingly sensitive internal space is and probably some healing, right, from being in literal fucking life or death scenarios as a homeless person living in the streets with nothing. Probably some of the trauma of literal life and death situations, facing my own potential demise, right? So probably some of what I'm feeling is that. And see, she has the need to know that if a pit bull and then a 6'2", 225-pound, just naturally strong dude shows up, I got to be able to deal with it. And 5'10", probably still. I guess I'm down to 5'9" now. 5'10", 1,106 nanograms per deciliter levels of testosterone. So probably had higher testosterone than him, most likely. But 180-pound Benton's got to be able to deal with this guy and his pit bull. Meaning I got to be willing to fight him to motherfucking death. And I was, if it came down to that. Now, not in service of myself. I would have just, I'll escape on motherfucking foot if necessary. And I'm the type of guy that at that time, yeah, I would have fought to the motherfucking death. Now I'm not going to be with the woman. And now I view the situation very differently. But let's not forget, in the Genghis Khan story, that more or less begins when the banditos came and he was traveling out on the steppe there, and with his newborn baby and his woman, and the banditos came and he fled and let the woman and the child get captured. So he lived to fight another day. And he would have understood, well, he could get another wife and make another child. So that's also part of the whole breed whitey breed thing. So yeah, breed whitey breed, except why won't Whitey kill the thing that won't let him, be dominant over his wife and child? And the religion says he's supposed to be dominant over his wife and child. The religion says it. So he won't even practice his religion because he won't stand up to the government, because he can't stand up to the government. Right. And I'm not even saying he should, or I'm not even saying Christianity's valid as practiced in churches. I'm saying they're not even practicing what they claim is the religion. They would have to stand up to the government today. They would have to say, well, we're not going to have the police showing up at the home. We're not going to have a society when the wife can call in the cops, where the child can call in the cops. We're just simply not going to have that. And then immediately society's going to say, well, we can't. Feminism and all of this and leftism is going to say, well, you can't have women and children under the domination of a man. See, society's already decided you can't have women and children under the domination of men. So it's over with. Breeding for whiteys, it's over. It's over with. That ship has sailed. Whitey's not going to band together and stand up against the government. That's not going to happen. So really what you're saying is cuck, Whitey, cuck. He's saying go ahead and make the babies anyway and cuck oneself to this system. Well, some of us can't cuck. I can't cuck myself to this system of things. That's a violation. I'm not able to do that. I would, it's that whole die on your feet, then live on your knees, right? I'm the guy who the first time she starts tripping, I don't come home to her. My first wife looked me in the eyes, said she didn't love me anymore. I moved out of the house that weekend and we got a divorce. I don't stick around for the bad treatment. I'm leave. And then, surprise, surprise, she tried to get me back. She did everything short of saying she made a big fat mistake. She tried to get back with me. By then, there was no reason for me to stay, and I had gotten enough of a taste of my freedom. See how it works? She looked me in the eye, said, I don't love you anymore. I packed my shit and moved out of our house and did not come back and rented an apartment. And we got a divorce. And she tried to get back with me because that's a power play. Her peer group, the gals, society taught her, oh, hell no, girl. I would never put up with that from my man. And by the time I got into my second marriage and she was working at the Clinique counter, and ex-wife number 2 came through the door and talked to me the way she talked to those cows at the Clinique counter, and her co-workers at Dillard's, I heard it in her voice and said, listen, you can't talk to me like you talk to them women down at the Dillard's. I said, I'm your man. I'm not one of your girlfriends. And I said, I understand that you listen to them cows down there saying, oh, hell no, my man would never. I said, they're right, because I would never be their man. I would never be with them. I'm with you. So what they think about what I would or wouldn't do, or what they would or would not tolerate, it don't amount to a hill of beans, because I would never come home to one of them cows. And meanwhile, I wouldn't come home to you if you acted like they claim they act. Meanwhile, if I was willing to spend 5 seconds, if I looked at them for 5 seconds and was willing to be in a relationship with them, I was nice to a woman at the bank, and she invented a reason to call my job to try to get me to come back to the bank to talk to her again, because I went to the bank and cashed my checks, because I chose not to. I didn't have a bank account. I didn't have a bank account, actually. That's a whole other story. And she was a chubby chick, but a chubby in all the right places, if you get my meaning. But, you know, I love women. I like all kinds of women. Okay. And it ain't, oh, bitten, it's feeling it. It's none of that. It's a man wants what he wants, and it's between her legs. She wants the relationship. The relationship is her reward. That's for her. That's not for me, right? Now, in order to act, when I needed access to a vagina, was I willing? Yes, and I preferred to do that in the context of a relationship. Absolutely. That's my preference versus banging a bunch of bras, which I was never into. Never was my thing. So yeah, breed, Whitey, breed, but now why would Whitey breed outside of the context of all of these things that used to be present in society have been removed, and, right, and it's all to the detriment of the man. Now, it's also to the detriment of the woman, right? If the woman is willing to view herself as a breeder, right? Now, I know enough of the leftism and the intersectionality and all this gender studies, LGBTQ, plus weirdo nonsense. I know enough about it to understand the context of breeder, right? But so yeah, if there's a community like they have going on in Utah, right? If there were women to marry who weren't cop callers, breed, Whitey, breed. Okay, Drew, where are the women who won't call the cops on me? Now, meanwhile, I'm 50. Hopefully I'm retired from all of this. Let's just do a thought experiment where it's, you know, a 25-year-old Ben. Where are the women who won't call the cops on 25-year-old Benton? And then immediately gaslight and say, well, Benton, don't do anything to get the cops called on me. No, the woman knows she can call the cops anytime she wants, and she will invent the reason for calling the cops. And it will feel like a valid reason. So he doesn't need to do anything other than have a dick and balls and be present in the environment. That's all he needs to do. Have a dick and balls and be present in the environment. Because she's going to get the it. It seems to be alive. It's not alive. The white race. And because it's interesting, the moment I started saying white race, we disconnected. Isn't that interesting? Because certainly YouTube's not going to let people come on here talking about the white race. See, isn't that interesting? And maybe the stream's been killed at this point. I don't know. They killed my stream recently for the first time that I'm ever aware of. YouTube killed my stream. All right, here's an exit. Take this exit and go to the bathroom. Get away from this car also. These lunatics. These are lunatics. So why would I even want to live in a society with lunatics? Like, well, it's not really up to you. Exactly. Why would I make new people and then have them live in a society of lunatics? How's that look? Off the highway. Like, for real. But I guess YouTube's going to give me another chance as long as I don't continue to talk about the white race. Right. I don't know. Has YouTube not figured out by now that Benton here ain't ever going to lead a movement? And in fact, that's a big part of why Benton is even allowed to exist in society and hasn't been killed or incarcerated. And I've had numerous bizarre run-ins with the law where I'm almost certain that when they look me up on the computer, there's some sort of flag that may not tell them anything specific, but more or less says, hey, unless he's committed some sort of serious offense, just more or less let him go. Don't hem him up too bad. You know how many times they've asked to search my vehicle? Never. One time, the guy told me he because to search my vehicle, and I had already locked it and was outside of it. And I said, I don't know what to tell you because I'm not giving you access to my vehicle. So, and what I didn't need to then say was get a warrant because he knows that I know that if he wants to search my vehicle, he's got to get a warrant. And I know and he knows that there's not a judge anywhere it's just not possible. It's not going to happen. There's nothing there. There's no actual, meaning he actually doesn't have probable cause. He's bluffing. And surprise, surprise, look at who's was brainwashed by a literal mind control cult as a child. I really have no way of knowing what they may have done to me, at the level of MK Ultra mind control. And somehow, some way, I just happen to more or less expertly know how to deal with the cops my whole life. Isn't that amazing? How did that happen? It's a mystery. Or is it? Is it dark chocolate time? That's the question. I think it is. Where's the battery? Where are we at on the battery here? Let me see. Are we live? Oh, yeah. And see, now the gaslighting and the ridicule, see? The gaslighting and the ridicule. And see, what's interesting as I glance at the chat is what happens, people that don't understand lolcow dynamics, they become lolcows, right? Even if they wouldn't have become lolcows. And let me know if I'm still here, if you would. Anybody. But if there's 4 people listening, if somebody could type into the chat. So what happens is it's called A-logging when a person covers a lolcow and comments on their content. So what happens is the A-logger, if they're not careful with their A-logging, they begin to treat everything the lolcow does as if it were ridiculous, right? It's like, oh, because of the person's behavior, in this case, they can't have high testosterone. Well, except there's a thing called a blood test. There's a facility that the person can go to and pay about $100 and have their blood drawn, right? I mean, you understand there's a way to substantiate this. But see, it's the mockery and the ridicule. Again, when will the people tire of the mockery and the ridicule? So when the lolcow, and this would be Benton as the lolcow, when everything he does or says is treated as if it were ridiculous, that's the mechanism whereby the A-logger eventually becomes a bigger lolcow than the object of the A-logging. And it's happening right now with these podcasts. Carl, the guy that runs the channel, verge of becoming a bigger lolcow than Stuttering John Melendez, who's one of the objects of his A-logging. And also Opie from Opie and Anthony. He's on the verge of becoming the bigger lolcow. And so what the person who I would prefer not to ban in my chat, and I don't know if that person uses alter egos or not, a person who I would prefer not to ban in my chat has been banned because, right, maybe for their own protection, but do they realize what they're even doing? Because to never concede a point is to provably say, it's to provably treat everything that I do or say as if it were worthy of ridicule. So it's a default strategy of mockery and ridicule. And then it gets called, that's banter, or, oh, what's the big deal? That's ribbing. And then I say, well, these are valid points. Why can't you concede them? What's the big deal? Right? Like, two could play the what's the big deal game. Okay, you're right. What's the big deal? If it's not a big deal, why won't you concede the point? If it's not a big deal, why is it mockery and ridicule no matter what the being does? Like, why is that? It has to mean something. And so this is how the A-logger eventually becomes bigger, more ridiculous than the lolcow. Because if you think I don't understand the ridiculousness in being a man, just that concept at all, right? Yeah, clearly the whole thing's ridiculous on some level. Of course it is. My point is to treat every word and action as if it were wholly ridiculous for you. That's actually gaslighting yourself. You're gaslighting yourself. And it's kill the messenger to avoid defending an indefensible system. So, keep blaming everything on Democrats. Dick Cheney gave birth to this current crop of Democrats. There, you could not have Obama, Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Gavin Newsom. None of that could exist in its present form without W. Bush and Dick Cheney and Enron and Bush's daddy and financial crisis and all of these things. Torture, American torture in under W. Bush, all of that, right? And America disgraced itself on the world stage, and America became ridiculous and mockable, and really did enjoy a very positive reputation around the world, right up until the Republican administration of George W. Bush and Dick Cheney. Right. So blame Biden's poopy diaper all you want. Blame Bidenomics. Blame it all. As long as you trace it back to W. Bush and Dick Cheney. And Bush 41. Oh, and neoliberalism, so-called, which more or less came about through who? Who was that started it? Oh, yeah, Ronald Reagan and Donald Rumsfeld, among others. Ronald Reagan and Donald Rumsfeld. But we won't account for any of that, because that's not nearly as much fun as pointing and laughing at Biden's poopy diaper. See how it works? And so my thing is, yeah, sure, it's all fun and games until the rubber meets the road and it's time to get serious about things. Like, when does the moment of seriousness come? And look, when I want to drink, I'm going to drink. I never promised anybody sobriety. I almost drank myself to death. But the point I'm making is, it's simply not possible, and I know this from experience. One cannot poison themselves with ethanol on a regular basis and simultaneously take themselves seriously as a person. So we have people out here, such as the one who just got banned, who takes being a father and a husband and a productive member of society so seriously that he drinks poison on a regular basis. Right. Doesn't even take himself seriously as a person. Right. And therefore doesn't treat fatherhood and all of the, doesn't even treat that like it's serious. See? Why is that? Because at a certain point, if it's going to be breed whitey breed, at what point does it need to be seriously addressed? Well, clearly, Whitey would need to do something about the government, meaning to what? Actually engage in politics, because a prerequisite of engagement in a political process is power. Until a group of individuals grasps and wields power, they're not involved in a political process. I hope you understand, sir. You're not involved in a political process. You don't have any power, meaning you don't belong to any groups that have any power whatsoever to affect any change whatsoever. The masses of people in this country don't wield any power whatsoever. So the idea of defining oneself in relation to a political process, that's mockable and laughable and ridiculous. That's laughable and ridiculous, right? So this idea of the children are our future, treat them well and let them lead the way. Well, the only way to teach them well would be to say, hey, this is what we do When government starts tripping, this is what we do when corporations start tripping. When corporations start cutting into family time, when corporations will no longer pay a living wage. Meanwhile, this person has no trouble stealing from their employer, by their own admission, stealing time from their employer. Oh, that's completely fine to show up in not in a proper condition for work, and then to describe themselves in comedic fashion, hiding underneath a piece of equipment and pretending to work so that they can sleep off, whatever level of drunkenness is still present from the night before, so they can sleep it off, Monday morning or whatever, right? But then gaslight Benton and others, and all Benton does is say, hey, I don't want anything to do with this because it's not proper. Benton is just crazy enough to say, hey, how about you make a proper society first, and then maybe I will choose to join it. Maybe I will choose to give to it something beyond what I'm willing to take from it. Because, make no mistake, it's transactional and oppressive and adversarial, and it's not possible to opt out of it. My very psychology is a product of this system to this day. Now, not entirely, but in part, at least partially, my psychology is a product of this system. At least in part, it's not possible to opt out of the system or to remove oneself from the system. It's not possible. It can't be done. And it takes from me, I would be insane not to take from it. That's crazy. And people like other content creators, in a thought experiment, perhaps, have said things about, well, you're talking about adversarial, why not symbiotic? I don't know. If I take from it and it takes from me, isn't that symbiotic? Now, we can argue about what does beneficial mean in that context, but based on the dictionary definitions of the terms symbiotic and beneficial, I don't know, you tell me. Now we're back to the Russian nesting dolls of context, right? Now we're back to the Russian nesting dolls of context. And I don't even know if I'm live or not. I guess it's up to me. Hey, why ask somebody else to do what I can do for myself, right? Let's see if I can confirm or disconfirm if I'm live or not. Maybe we're not. Mic check, mic check. Yeah, we're still here. And so that's it's kind of this whole thing with when people just stop and stare and watch me in public, they seem to have lost the part where they seem to not be able to understand that that I see them standing and watching me like I'm television. And I'm just looking at them like, hey man, don't you understand that I'm seeing what you're doing? So when somebody like Enslaved by Truth in my YouTube comments only ever interacts based on mocking and ridiculing, don't they understand that that's an observable pattern and that they eventually become the mockery? They become the mockery and the ridicule. It's that whole, that I don't pull in ridicule and ridiculous. Now, some of the performance is mockable and worthy of ridicule. I agree with you. That order shut-in bozos know nobody's going to do a damn thing to fix society. Society can't be fixed because individuals are not capable of existing in a proper society. You can't have a proper society when individuals aren't capable of performing within a proper society. That's not possible. See? So therefore, individuals have to do better. Oh, but we can mock and ridicule and gaslight and attack Benton. Well, Benton's already doing better. They say, oh, really? Well, how's that working out? Working out great for me, because what I am in the context of vacuous, delusory, adversarial realm of business transactions, world of death, game of lies, what I am in each new moment, now it's here, now it's gone, the delusion of time, space, location, place, in all of that Russian nesting dolls of context, every moment, every now it's here, now it's gone, now it's here, now it's gone, what I am either serves the spirit of air quote so-called God, or what I am, worshiper and worshipee contained within the same space, or it serves mammon, aka the love of money, aka the root of all evil, or Satan, or antithesis. Mic drop. What you gonna tell me? So, to avoid facing the reality that Benton is elucidating, to only treat Benton's performance as worthy of mockery and ridicule, that's one thing. And that's not a problem. The problem for the being is that the being becomes that mockery and ridicule. See? You become the system. You become the mockery. You become the ridicule. That's bad for you, because it's not. No lunches are free. It is a zero-sum game in that way. Yeah, game of incomplete information, sure, but there's no free lunch. There's a cost to treating someone who's speaking truth, to treating the performer and the performance as if every single thing it does and says is worthy of mockery and ridicule. You become worthy of mockery and ridicule. You begin to personify mockery and ridicule beyond the levels at which I actually perform in ways that are mockable and ridiculable. And I would say just the idea of being a man is ridiculous on its face. See? Just that is ridiculous on its face. Now, the reality that certain men manage to be married and raise their children and not have the cops called and not have their wives divorce them and not have to pay child support and all of this, and that their wives maybe individually haven't married the government, what does that have to do with all of these other males who are going to end up married to women who have already married the government? What does that have to do with them? And how would I benefit if I made more people? It would not benefit me in the slightest. Now, it would be to my detriment, because I would be able to drive a truck or do another job because my motivation level would be high enough. Meanwhile, I wouldn't even be in the home. I guess they would get me home just often enough to, make a boy into a man, right? Live up to my obligations. Send the money home, right? Support the home financially, and let, mama, who's supposed to be in charge of the home, let her be in charge of the home, right? Now, the protector's gone, so now we're already depending on the police to protect. But yeah, there's other jobs that don't involve not being at home. And yeah, could I learn how to fix equipment and do all of these things that EBT does? Yeah, I guess I could learn how to do that. Could I exist in a workspace with other people? Probably not. I mean, let's call it what it is. Probably not. Would EBT and his ilk want to work with somebody like Benton? Of course not. That's the last thing we need. Is some neurodivergent bozo, Frankenstein's monster down there. Doing things by the book, actually working hard all day long. Nobody needs that. Everybody's going to have to work hard pretty soon. You got old Benton down there actually doing his job all day. And then society would say, well, Benton, you're going to have to support level and skill set for that. Yeah, probably. See what I'm saying? What I am is not supposed to curse itself into these systems of things. It's not supposed to hold behind a job. It's not supposed to be paying taxes. What I am is not supposed to even have a job in the first place. Well, how can it make a bunch of children and raise them and provide for them properly? Well, within this society, that means the nuclear family, apparently. And the woman, by and large, is married to the state, and she wears the pants. Who wears the pants in EBT's house? I don't know. Not my business. I have no idea. I suspect he does. I don't know. I can't call it. Now, I know enough about women to know that wearing the pants means that, yeah, they're going to let you wear the pants. Yeah, they're going to let you do that. Yeah, I'm not dumb. I've always had a high level of regard for women, females. I understand that on some level. And then why does the being even feel compelled to comment is another thing. Why not leave it alone? Why not listen to what I'm saying and say, fair enough? I don't think I posted anything in the comments of Drew's stream. I don't think I went on there and started making all these points in his comment section. I'm free to make all these points in his comment section. Why would I do that? For what? What do I get out of that? See, when I know I can come on here and talk about it. But hitting a little too close to home there, ain't I, buddy? Hitting a little too close to home there, ain't I, buddy? Buddy. How you like them apples, guy? How you like them apples, fella? Anyway, hang on a second. We got to plug in the old phone here before we run out of battery. We're gonna run out of Bayou La battery. Charging. Let's see. And like I say, we've seen it on the internet where the A-logger eventually becomes an even bigger lolcow than the original, the person they were A-logging. And like I said, this Carl from Who Are These Podcasts, because he's starting to, when he watches Opie or he watches Aaron Imholt, he's starting to laugh and mock and ridicule everything that Opie says. But he's doing it on a panel with 3 other people who are sitting there going, well, wait a minute, Carl. They're not immediately laughing with Carl because they're saying, well, wait a minute, Carl. Some of what he's saying is valid. And we're not willing to sign off on treating everything that the person says as if it were ridiculous. See, EBT has been doing this from day one. He's been treating what Benton does and says from day one as if it, other than in a specific context of, people talking about the pandemic and, can you believe they're wearing masks and they're all going to take these jabs? And, outside of the context of the stuff that we all seemingly agreed on, right? He's always treated me as if, with some minor exceptions, as if everything I do and say is ridiculous, right? And we know why. We know why that is. It's because of status quo, social contract, conformity to peer groups, and he's an NPC normie on some level, right? And these are also your people who, lack artistic creativity, meaning they don't lack the ability to be artists. And I'm not saying he's not creative. I'm saying it's repressed, right? It's repressed. See? It has to be held back. Whereas Benton's free to create and express. Part of that creative expression is not concerned. The performance can't concern himself with elements that might be mocked or ridiculed, because the content creator or the artist must have complete control of the creation, right? What I believe and what I know to be valid and correct, that's the most important thing. And, I've been back to watching content about Stanley Kubrick, the filmmaker. And what's interesting about Kubrick was he, in the performing of his art, in the crafting of his art, he only concerned himself with what needed to be done to make the art. If Tom Cruise, whatever Tom Cruise's opinion was of, Tom Cruise might be physically exhausted from shooting the same scene over and over and over again. Well, who cares? Stanley Kubrick's making a movie. And that's what's important. So Benton's doing a live stream. That's what's important. See? Now, in the context of the mockery and the ridicule, yeah, we can take what EBT is adding to it, and we can alchemize that and add it to the performance, sure. Now, in the past, was Benton triggered by the mockery and the ridicule? Absolutely. What about now, EBT? And now, EBT and others can then say, oh, well, that's, we were doing that for your own good. Well, bullshit, because now there needs to be an entire discussion around altruism, right? And absolutely not. I'm not signing off on altruism as a motivation. So, and that even, then we would even need to get to, is the being even capable and willing to doing things that are in my best interest that would maybe not be in their best interest? Like, well, also probably not willing to sign off on that, but certainly not willing to sign off on the what seems to be altruistic. No, sorry, that dog don't hunt, partner. And then can we face the reality? Benton just too smart for y'all. I mean, I hate to say it, Benton just too fucking smart for y'all. I don't know what it is that. Now, certainly the peanut gallery lacks the intelligence and lacks the focus and the mental acuity to follow along enough to be able to tell the difference. Benton just too smart for y'all. Now, Benton's not saying he's smarter. He's saying he's too smart for y'all. Meaning all this bullshit nonsense that maybe it does work with other people and worked with Benton in the short term, meaning, yes, it did hem him up and stymie his efforts in certain ways. Not anymore. Now, some may say, how's that working out for you? Well, it's working out to me to the tune of 7 live viewers. We're on our way to 0, and a decline in subscribers that's settling in at more or less around 770 subscribers. While other channels, subscribers grow, subscribers grow over time. So, in that context, it's not working out at all, right? In the context of creative expression, it's working out great because I don't even go to y'all's channels anymore, except Drew's. Of course, I do. Sadly, I would have to say no longer a fan of the channel, more a fan of the person at this point. Can't even really watch the content, sadly. Just bits and pieces. Used to be the biggest fanboy. I've never been ashamed of being a fanboy. I'll fanboy out with the best of them. Absolutely. Why wouldn't I? The reality is, certain people cannot and will not stand in righteousness. They won't do what's necessary to bring forth the fruit of righteousness. See, what do you think the Bible's talking about when it talks about make the tree good or make the tree rotten? It talks about, the tree by the fruit. It talks about bringing forth good fruit. The fruit of what? Righteousness. Where's the righteous fruit, sir? Where is it? It's not the proper society to raise your children in. That's not there. That fruit's rotten. Right? Why won't the being sacrifice and do what would be necessary? Will the being sacrifice their own children? Well, the being has sacrificed their children. The being sacrificed their children to Moloch's machine of industrial and post-industrial society. So yes, the being will sacrifice their children. Benton has sacrificed 0 children. Therefore, Benton is better than you, sir. Now, you can try to claim that you haven't sacrificed your children. And that's really only going to be borne out based on what do your children end up serving. I would say that if your children end up serving mammon and serving this system of things, it's because you sacrifice them. I would say that the reason why you, whether it's the listener or the royal you or EBT, serves the system, it's because they were sacrificed as children by their parents to the system and never got extricated themselves. Benton, your discourser, was sacrificed to Moloch and has reversed the curse and rescinded the curse and broken all of those contracts and defeated those demons, right? Shing! The word of God goeth out of the mouth like a sharp sword, EBT. In your book, it does that, EBT. Shing! Word of God can't ever mean written Bible, EBT. That ain't possible. Word of God can't ever be a dead thing. And Bible, the written Bible, is dead, sir. It traces its origins to this world. The so-called Word of God, shing, can never be a dead thing. See? And it does goeth out of the mouth like a sharp sword, symbolically. And literally when it comes to demonic warfare. And if you think there's a single person who practices alcoholism, not calling anybody an alcoholic, Benton's never been an alcoholic. Benton practiced alcoholism for a time. That was never his identity. Just like Benton has never identified as a sinner. To identify as a sinner is to align oneself as a servant of wickedness and evil, right? And that is to be sacrificed to Moloch and Moloch's machine. And it's also to then raise one's children in a religion that teaches that they themselves are fallen, sinful, wicked, is to curse them into a system whereby they have been sacrificed to Moloch and Moloch's machine. And then the religion is there, the church is there to not pay taxes, but to simultaneously tell them to pay their taxes, to curse them into a system through literal child human sacrifice. So number one, stop sacrificing the children, but breed, whitey, breed. But where and how, EBT, is Whitey going to be taught how to not curse their own children? Because first, doesn't Whitey need to reverse the curse? Doesn't Whitey need to break the curse? Whitey's cursed, EBT. Whitey is accursed. Now, maybe not as accursed as the black man, but certainly Whitey's accursed, sir. This ain't possible. You can't have a world of death and a game of lies, and the white man is supposedly running the show in some ways, and have groups of hoarder shut-ins and boomers and old fogies who want to align with American exceptionalism, American military might, and all of this. And that's Whitey on some level. Whitey's clearly cursed. I mean, where's the blessing? What I am can't ever identify fully as a white person, because what I am is blessing, and therefore it can't align itself with curse or treat its blessing as if it were maybe a curse, because that's blasphemy in the Holy Spirit, EBT. The book says that's the only so-called unforgivable sin, is to treat one's curse. See the inversion, to treat one's blessing as if it were a curse, sir. Are you bringing forth blessing, EBT, or are you bringing forth curse? That's the question. Because if I do the right things, EBT, based on your own book and the rules and the dogma and the doctrine of your own church, if I do the right things, then I am redeemed, sir. Are you going to ridicule a redeemed Benton? You know, when does the default strategy of mockery and ridicule, when does that cease? See? Well, if the being knows that they are committing blasphemy in the Holy Spirit, well, then, of course, that's worthy. That's shame, guilt. That is obliteration. So when EBT guzzles poison, he's seeking to obliterate all those parts of himself that he can't reconcile, because they are representative of unrighteousness, because he can't get right, because he's serving his master Satan. And his master Satan demands that he commit blasphemy in the Holy Spirit. That's a prerequisite. EBT, in order to serve his master Satan and to make the tree rotten, and the tree is rotten as long as the tree is not made good, that's, again, the being redeems himself. It's not an idea of, oh, well, there's going to be a judgment, right? And then EBT wants to act like, well, sir, Benton, you're not checking all the boxes to be, to get past the judgment. And Benton just says, well, actually, sir, salvation's not a team sport. If there's going to be a judgment like the Bible says, you're not finna be there. Your opinion doesn't matter. And then it's me and my boss, right? It's me and my so-called creator. And then I've got skin in the game, so I'm clearly living what I believe is going to give me the best chance to get beyond the judgment. So what are you talking about? And meanwhile, your opinion doesn't mean anything. Man's opinion means nothing, which tips their cat. It's they're tipping their hand and showing their cards and saying, well, actually, they are servants of the God of this world. They are servants of antithesis. Because antithesis says you must perform at a consensus level. Consensus, society, man, status quo, social contract, peer groups. And if you think you're going to have a bunch of women in your life, good luck having a wife and a bunch of daughters and not living based on status quo, social contract, adherence to peer groups. Good luck conformity to peer groups. Good luck. Because, yeah, males are increasingly susceptible to all that. Women are even more susceptible. The hive mind, see. Now, maybe Drew, who doesn't guzzle alcohol more often than not, and is probably some version of a 6'2" Chad or whatever he is. And maybe EBT is a Chad light, right? You want to talk about testosterone levels? You're going to have to go off the booze for a few months to even get back to what your body would make naturally, EBT. All I got to do is crank the calories up for about a week, make sure I get proper sleep, make sure I'm waking up with a rock hard boner every morning, and I'll take the Pepsi challenge with your testosterone levels even any day of the week, even though I think I'm about 10 years older than you or more. My 70-year-old father probably makes more testosterone than you make. In fact, I know he does. EBT. We can take that. I'll give you a month to prepare. Give me a month to prepare. And I'll pay $100 and you pay $100 and we'll escrow $1,000. We'll each escrow $1,000. And to the victor go the spoils. And if I don't make over $650, even if I beat you, you can keep my money. If I make $635 and you make $580, you can have my $1,000, partner, because I won't even want it at that point. I'll say, shit, I don't deserve this $1,000. If I can't make at least $650, you think you're getting smashed and making $650? Fuck no. Fuck no. When the head cheerleader in high school asked me out on a date, EBT, whatever testosterone level you made as a junior in high school, what do you think mine was? See, you see what I'm saying? You can mock and ridicule my testosterone level all you want. It's higher than yours, I promise you. It's never not been higher than yours. When I was dying of chronic illness, maybe it wasn't. Probably not then. How many days of the week do you wake up with a rock hard boner, EBT? Right? I don't fucking know. Don't really want to know. I'm asking rhetorically. See? I know you don't drink all night and wake up with a hard dick. I know that. That ain't the thing. And EBT, if he's got this sleep disorder he claims to have, you're never going to get rid of that belly fat without proper rest. Surely EBT is aware of the research around proper sleep cycles and belly fat in the males. Stress is a big one. Proper diet, of course, is a big one, including dietary cholesterol and magnesium, selenium, vitamin D. You know, I know what to do to maximize my testosterone level. And I was married twice, and for the entirety of both of my, well, that's not true. There was times with ex-wife number one. She didn't always get it, but more often than not, at least once a night, minimum, right? I don't know, man. How often is Missy EBT getting it from you? I mean, not how often is she getting it? And see, this is what the see, now I'm speaking the language of the repressed chalk body outline audience. See, they love all the cuck talk. That's what they're into. They're into that. Bunch of into all that. And meanwhile, EBT, I knew years ago from researching on forums when I was lifting weights and putting on insane amounts of muscle mass, right? From the perspective of somebody who didn't take steroids and who has a high level of commitment and discipline. I knew that people who were going to hormone doctors and getting put on testosterone legally, here's how they did it. They got drunk and didn't sleep. That's the most effective way to lower testosterone levels in the male is drink alcohol and don't sleep. And what does he do on a regular basis? Drinks alcohol and doesn't sleep and wants to make fun of my testosterone levels. Okay, buddy. Okay. And I'll happily pay $100 anytime you want. I would like some advance notice just so I can make sure that I'm sleeping properly because I am working as a truck driver, so I don't have complete control over am I going to get I'll be get enough sleep to do the job. I'm not necessarily going to get enough sleep to maximize the testosterone levels. Or do we think I've just, or just Benton is the type he just makes shit up, I guess. We've been listening to Benton for 5 years now, or however long it's been, but, oh yeah, he's just making up the fact that he was 38 years old, got a physical, and they drew his blood, and I said, hey, do you all test do you check testosterone levels? They said, no, why? Do you think it's low? I said, no, actually I don't, but I'm just curious. I said, since you're doing the test anyway, okay, yeah, sure, we'll do testosterone. 1,106 nanograms per deciliter at age 38. So, do you think I'm just making that up? I mean, have we been around Benton long enough to realize that he doesn't just make shit up? I mean, I don't know. Or is that part of the gaslighting and the mockery and the ridicule? We'll just treat him like he's the type of person who makes shit up. Like, why? So there's no possibility of establishing a track record of not just making shit up. So that's not even possible. So there's no such thing as good credit. There's only bad credit, like Adam Carolla says. There's never just, oh, we know Benton and we know he doesn't just make shit up. That's not possible. Because we all live in a world in which we see many people who just make shit up when it suits their fancy. When they need to, for the purposes of discussion and the ins and outs, they just make shit up. So we must treat everyone like they're just going to make shit up. So I guess I've just been telling the same story for years. I've just decided that at age 38, I made 1,106 nanograms per deciliter of testosterone. I guess I just invented that. Okay. Whatever. I guess I banged ex-wife number one 3 times a day for the first year of our relationship because it wasn't because of the medically high testosterone and the fact that we were very attracted to each other, I guess, and she was willing, of course. I guess that's the medically high testosterone had nothing to do with it. Oh, my NFL all-pro wide receiver grandfather, that has nothing to do with genetically high testosterone. It's nothing to do with it whatsoever. The literal, as a white boy with NFL first team all pro wide receiver genetics, it's not possible for me to have medically high testosterone. Do you not see how ridiculous you sound? Because anybody can go to Wikipedia, type in Jim Benton football, and I can prove that that's my ancestor. And it says NFL first team all pro 1945 and 1946. And so it's somehow a bridge too far to, oh, well, what Benton is saying, that sounds like a guy with high testosterone. Well, yeah, it does, because I have high testosterone. So, yes, in fact, by definition, whatever I happen to be saying at any given time sounds like high testosterone. Now, does it need to go through, does it need to get reconciled through the consensus of the peanut gallery? I guess it doesn't. I guess it's whatever the peanut gallery finds to not be worthy of mockery and ridicule. That's what passes for high testosterone. So we've now decided that high testosterone, I guess, is what? Working as a mechanic, which is great. Providing a living for women, a wife and daughters, great, wonderful, good on you. That's a high testosterone endeavor, I guess. And it's so rewarding that the being is seemingly needing to kill their own high testosterone by guzzling alcohol and sleeping so poorly as to actually have been diagnosed with a sleep disorder. Guess who sleeps like a motherfucking baby, although that's not even this debate, how well do babies sleep? I don't know. Not that well in some cases. I sleep like a motherfucking champ most of the time. Hell, I was able to get proper sleep on the motherfucking sidewalk to some extent. I've slept on the sidewalk, got proper sleep, took a train 45 minutes to another town, worked all day in a call center, took a train back another 45 minutes, went to sleep on the same sidewalk, and did that for a whole month. What you gonna tell me, buddy? You think that's not a high testosterone endeavor? I don't know what to tell you. In Old Town Portland, an open air mental asylum. An open air mental asylum. But anyway, thank you for showing up and at least allowing me to gauge my own progress. Because yeah, in the past I would have gotten triggered to some extent by his commentary. I would have allowed myself to become triggered. Is really the way to say it. I would have allowed myself to become triggered. Is this the fuel stop? No, maybe not. Not yet. Not yet. We don't need to stop just yet. And of course, as long as the being is willing to status quo, social contract, conform to peer groups, now they don't have to worry about is their performance ridiculous, because it can't ever be that society's performance can't possibly be ridiculous. You can't have, but meanwhile it's clown world, but you can't have a society of ridiculous, and individuals within society are performing at a level of just ridiculous on its face, right? So therefore, EBT and others are consecrated. They are absolved. They are, there's a word I'm looking for. I can't think of it right now, but you know, they are absolved, right? It's the born into sin, but now because they've attached themselves to society, to the church, authority. They've attached themselves to authority. Now they are absolved. They've been signed off on. They've been authorized. See? And so now why would they then righteously live a life based on making the tree good and bringing forth righteous fruit, which would require them to step out of the bounds of status quo, social contract, and conformity to peer groups. It's one or the other, because the status quo serves mammon. The social contract is in service of mammon. The conformity to peer groups is in the context of mammon, or love of money, or the root of all evil, or the service of Satan. Right? Every knee shall bow, sir. So yeah, mock and ridicule what Benton is. Mock and ridicule Christ, right? Oh, he's calling himself Christ again. The resurrection of the risen Christ within me. It's the entire point of the Christ story. Now, there's other parts of it too. It's the reason for the Christ story. That the follower may eventually uncover and walk the righteous, perfected path that lies within, which is based on true knowledge of self, which is to righteously express based on making the tree good, bringing forth the righteous fruit by walking the perfected path that lies within. And that only happens by coming unto true knowledge of self, which only happens in conjunction with, by, for, and with the resurrection of the risen Christ within me, worshiper and object of worship contained within the same space. What I am is the way, what I am is the truth, what I am is the life. Supreme authority, creation, expansion, life itself, justice. This world is the lack of life. This world is the lack of abundance. This world is the lack of justice. This world is the lack of authority. That's what this place is. That's why it's a world of death and a game of life. It's the inverse of what I am. It's that which makes an enemy of what I am. It seeks to usurp and supplant and supersede and take the place of what I am. See, it's an imposter. See, that's what this is, sir. Make no mistake, that's what this is. Man, my shoulder's feeling good, Bo. For those who may not know, I've had basically like an arthritic shoulder my whole adult life. It's been a great deal of healing lately, and over a period of many years also. And we're getting into some new ranges of motion and It's really a lot less pain and just all around good vibes. All around good vibes. Come on. Well, it's blueberry time. If y'all don't mind me, I guess I've done enough. That's enough ranting, enough preaching. Although I might do more. But let's just chop it up. Now we'll chop it up. Mm. Red grapes, delicious. Oh yeah. I usually start with the blueberries, but we're starting with the red grapes. All right. Shout out to Bulk Hungry. He's still here. Says he's a little behind, but he's catching up. Apologies for eating into the microphone, but it is what it is. Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. You know, you got people talk about, you know, I know sometimes Drew covers how people, you know, in the past, like the 50s and 60s, you know, he might show old pictures of people at the beach or whatever and what they used to look like. You know, when are people going to commit themselves to proper nutrition? So I committed myself to proper nutrition several years ago, and now I eat properly. I spent my whole life mostly not eating properly. And then I then I changed and I committed to eating properly. But I still see people in the so-called truth community discussing like the latest fare at Taco Bell. Like, you know, my dad didn't know or care what Taco Bell had on offer when he was 35 years old. He wasn't going to Taco Bell. Now, were there times when him, my mom, and my sisters went to Taco Bell? Yes. 3 or 4 times a year, all of us would be in a Taco Bell for whatever reason. My father would have not had any opinion whatsoever on the food at Taco Bell. He would probably just know. My mom would just like more or less know what to order for him. He had other shit on his mind. Right. He certainly wouldn't have been on a Discord server somewhere, you know, discussing whatever, you know, new thing Taco Bell has. And maybe, you know, waxing poetic about how, you know, it was more affordable in the past or whatever. Grown adults are not supposed to regularly eat at Taco Bell. So just like people say, oh, well, you know, minimum wage jobs are not supposed to be able to sustain a family and all of this. Yeah, and grown adult men aren't supposed to be eating food either. Wendy's is like just about every day for years. When I had a job back in the day, it was normied the fuck out, right? But even then, it hadn't morphed into like people's hobby, like, you know, becoming a meme of computer guy or whatever they call him, the fat computer nerd playing video games from South Park, you know, with a Slurpee, you know. You couldn't play. I'm 50. You couldn't play video games as an adult male beyond a certain age. It just wasn't allowed. It just wasn't permitted. There was no playing video games. Are you crazy? Now, there were some exceptions to that, but, you know, I pay society. I hear what people do. Most of what people do in their free time nowadays is they play video games, which, look, I don't give a fuck. Do whatever you want. I believe in freedom, you know, to some extent, but, you know, I recognized fairly early in my 20s, I said, oh, I got to just stop playing video games because I get too addicted, and then pretty soon all I'm doing is playing video games. Like, this is I can't. This is crazy. Well, when I was 14, it didn't matter. I could play all the video games I wanted. Now, that still had to work that in with my other activities, of course. You know, I had other things to do, skateboarding every day, basketball every day, right? Some amount of spending time with the girls, the gals, or a girl, right? Some amount of co-ed time, some amount of television, movies, right? Video games, music. It's a lot of entertainment, a lot of things to do. So you got fans, some of them, not all of them, but some of them, and now it's video games and Taco Bell. Taco Bell. Taco Bell. And I've watched my father to this day eat properly. I've watched the man, whether it was a woman cooking for him or it's him cooking his own meals. The man eats a balanced diet every day. Every motherfucking day he eats a balanced diet. His whole fucking life. See, he still is the person from the 60s and the 70s that you could have taken his picture on the beach. He's still that same. Now, he's also eaten some junk food because he's, had a gut at a certain point for years, had it a little too big around the belly. But then, surprise, surprise, decided to go back to, So I'll go ahead and say he's been prone to buying frozen burritos or whatever. Convenience food. I'll give him that. He's never been into sweets. So at what point are the people going to commit themselves to proper eating and they say, oh, it's too expensive, it's too this, it's too that? I don't know. I don't even work a job regularly, and I've managed to eat properly for like 4 years now. So I guess it probably comes down to how committed is the person to doing the damn thing. Eggs went up to $10 a dozen, and I still ate a dozen eggs every day, and was picking up cans and bottles for a sizable part of my income. It really comes down to how bad do you want it, and how important is it to you, or is Taco Bell important? Taco Bell's important. Oh, okay. Good news. Taco Bell's important. Why? What's the benefit to anybody of you eating Taco Bell? Or any fast food? How does that benefit you? And again, I don't have a dog in the hunt. I'm just saying, how is Benton so ridiculous and worthy of mockery and ridicule, right? I don't know, manages to feed himself properly. Now, whether or not that continues into the future remains to be seen, certainly. And yes, it is quite expensive. However, what's more important than that? I would argue not much. Not much.
Yeah, I'm eating $5 worth of blueberries right now. $5 ain't shit. Say, oh my God, it's expensive to eat properly. I don't know, what do y'all spend at Taco Bell? How much is a Monster energy drink? I'm eating $5 worth of blueberries. $5 is nothing. What's the nutritional content of $5 of blueberries versus whatever y'all get at Taco Bell or McDonald's or wherever y'all go? And I don't even mean you, the listeners, just hypothetical whoever. Can't we figure out that most of the reason people drink Monster energy drinks is the taurine? A bottle of taurine, it's 500 capsules, is $14 on Amazon. I know because I buy them. There's a gram of taurine in a Monster energy drink, or 2 5-cent capsules. Oh my God, what are we going to do? Figure it the fuck out. I take 4 of them a day minimum. Caffeine. There's ways to get caffeine. Sugar. There's other ways to get. There's sugar in the blueberries, for fuck's sake. And then I might mention canned herring. And the first thing everybody's going to think is mercury. I don't know. What's in the Taco Bell? Am I really going to be worried about the mercury in the canned fish? Are you crazy? Why? Why would I even think about that? Meanwhile, they say the smaller fish have less mercury, supposedly. I don't know if that's true or not, but whatever. I had sardines, actual sardines, 2.9 grams of omega-3 EPA and DHA. $2,900 milligrams of healthy omega-3s. I'm down to a dozen egg yolks because I started gaining too much weight. I needed to gain weight, and I'm glad I did, but at a certain point, it starts to become the wrong kind of weight. Ain't that right, EBT? So I cut back on what I'm eating. I don't eat as much as I was. Simple. I was at 24 egg yolks a day. Hey, we'll go to 12 for a while. See what happens. And always go back up. I was having 2 meals of my fish and my beans almost every day. All right, we'll go back to 1 meal. See what happens. Meanwhile, I can't even hardly poop right half the time. What's going on with the people who eat at Taco Bell every day? Right? It's got to come out the other end, don't it? Goodness gracious. Now, at this point, if I go one day without using the bathroom, I'm like, hey, what is this? What's going on here? Cause for concern. What's wrong? And you know, sometimes I don't want to get. I know people can't handle it, and I'm going to do my best not to be graphic, but you know, it can be a little more liquid than solid at times. That's happened to me maybe 3 times in the last 4 years. So less than once a year does that happen to me. I can remember when it was just basically normal. That was pretty much just what it was. Not always, but it was in no way unusual. Now, I'm of course asserting that what my father lived in was also not proper society. But if that's what people think proper society was, he wasn't free to just play video games, eat Taco Bell, be married, have a family, right? Let her fucking make all the decisions and run the show. And, you know, somebody would have been like, hey, man, get your shit together, right? So where is the society that's going to look at somebody like EBT and say, hey, man, get your shit together? Like, literally get your shit together. Like, why can't you poop right, if that's what it is? Why are you getting fucking drunk every night? Like, what is this? How come you show up for work and you got to go pass out for 2 to 3 hours? What is this, man? Get your shit together. Knock it the fuck off. Get your shit together. And yeah, it takes some of us longer than others. I can remember not having my shit together and trying to working with serious people who had their shit together. You know what they did? They told me to get my shit together. They tried to coach me up. It didn't work. They tried. I think back on it, and it was mostly the neurodivergence because I didn't really understand what the fuck I was supposed to be doing. Same thing with this truck driving. Half the time, I don't understand what exactly it is they want me to fucking do. The more structured it is, the more I'm able to figure out what to do. But we don't get to structure it and also gaslight the driver. See, now I'm in gaslight the driver land. And in order to gaslight the driver, we need a constant muddying of the waters. See, they're already changing what they told me. They told me something different a couple of days ago, and yesterday, because I know that people have a tendency to think I'm going to be awake. It's like, if I'm going to start driving at midnight, I'm probably not going to be available to take your phone call at 5 p.m. I mean, I'm just guessing. And right before my dispatcher either quit, I don't know what he did. They fired him, he quit, whatever it was. He was like, yeah, I was trying to call you. And I didn't. Because they have a wife and families and all this, they leave their phone on and they're interacting with their phone while they're sleeping. Right? They're on their phone while they're asleep, I guess. I put my shit I always have and always will. I put my shit in airplane mode, partner, and go to sleep. Anybody don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. I can't talk. I can't talk on the phone while I'm sleeping. It's one or the other, and I got to sleep to do this job. So anybody can have any opinion they want. Turning the phone off. I'll turn it back on when I wake. You'll know I'm awake because I'll, if I'm on a group chat or whatever, I guess I'll come back onto the group chat. However that works. I'm not a phone person, so for all I know, they know if I'm online or not. I don't fucking know. Don't know, don't care. But like, what do these people think it is, man? So I texted them and was like, "Yo, I'm going to start." And they have an idea that people can't go to sleep and then wake up at midnight. Actually, I woke up at 10:30 to be ready to leave at midnight. It's like, well, yeah, I can get at least 4 hours of sleep. From 6:30 to 10:30, which I think is what more or less what happened. Because 6:30 is close enough to my normal bedtime anyway. But see, and again, that's an acknowledgement. I don't care what society wants. I like to go to bed early and I like to get up early, so I go to bed early and get up early. Anybody don't like it, fuck them. Fuck them. Fuck them. That's their problem. I like to go to bed early. I realized years ago that I do the best when I go to bed early. Early. Benton does good going to sleep early. Wake up early. But so I text them, "Hey, I'm gonna be rolling about midnight," and then they're texting me back whatever I'm going to be doing today, and it's already different than what they told me it was going to be before. I don't fucking know. I guess I'll just, again, must take all beatings, except the expected, right? Just whatever. Who knows? Gaslighting the driver yet again. Who the fuck knows? Don't know, don't care. Pretty soon, I guess I'll be back in the damn motel. I shouldn't say damn motel. Be back in the motel, figuring out the next move, right? I already got rid of the car. That's a step in the right direction. So now it'll be get rid of most of these possessions and just keep, again, whatever I'm willing to carry, or probably end up with a fucking dolly. As much as I don't want to do that, rolling my shit around. My things, my belongings. Walmart's got some hoodies I like for $20. I almost bought another hoodie yesterday, but then I'm like, well, shit. Why buy it? I may not be able to. It might not make the cut. I've already got one hoodie like that. How many can I have? Probably just the one. I bought new socks and underwear. Got 2 pairs of thermal underwear, long johns, long underwear. Two pairs of pants, well, 3 pairs, but 2 pairs of winter weather advisory. What? I already went through that the other day. Oh, I didn't even tell you all about all that. Damn, dude. Yeah, not that much snow fell, although it did in parts. But it started snowing the other day. I guess Saturday. Was that Saturday? Yeah, Saturday. Man, these people started crashing like it was some kind of apocalypse. And I'm looking at it like, it really wasn't even that much snow. Now, I got into some areas later where it snowed pretty heavy, but that was prior snowfall. This was like, it did snow pretty heavy for a couple of hours, I will say that. But even before it started snowing heavily, man, these people started sliding around, sliding off the road, crashing. I had a car spin out in front of me. I'm almost believing they did it on purpose. By the second time it happened, I'm pretty sure they were halfway hoping I would hit them. They kissed the guardrail and just kept going. I've never seen anybody kiss the guardrail and just keep going. They almost always they didn't even hit the brakes. They just kept fucking going. Like, this is crazy. And then we got into a city. We got into Effingham, and the road was clear enough, and it went to enough lanes. Then they went like 70, the same people that were spinning out just before that. Because I was going to try to pass them. But first they passed me, which is how they ended up spinning out the first time. They got to going a little too fast. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure they were in an all-wheel drive crossover, one of them Lincoln crossovers. Almost assuredly, not necessarily, but probably all-wheel drive, full-time all-wheel drive. Of course, that makes it worse for half of these people, because then they think they can drive in it. Oh, it's terrible. And you got the road trip crew, a lot of them with Texas plates, and maybe just not used to driving in the snow so much. That was a fucking nightmare. Big rigs off the road, big rigs fucking crashing. One big rig rolled over in the median. And I think that just happened. I almost stopped. I'm thinking to myself, am I supposed to stop? But fuck, I just kept going. Fuck it. I don't know. I don't know if I even could have done anything. I'm certainly willing to help, but it was unclear. For all I know, it happened an hour before, and they already came and got his ass. Because it's not like they're, with enough. They're not going to have a record of immediately have it on the scene. He was as far away from the pavement as you could get, in the middle, in the median, the comedian, right? And I'm good in the snow, but people were driving so bad that I pulled over and called the owner of the company, and I was like, "Hey, man, I'm good in the weather," but I was letting him know these people are driving like they're insane. And of course, I got the whole speech about it's winter weather and we got to do this and we got to do that. It's like, okay, more gaslighting, because some drivers, just as soon as it starts snowing, they won't drive. And then the company tries to talk them into it. I always drive in it. I like to drive in it. I've never not driven in it. I'm from Arkansas. I always drove in the ice and snow in my car in Arkansas the few times it snowed and had ice. I never did drive. I always drove on it. Never stopped me. And so I got the whole speech about, leave more distance, slow down. I'm like, yo, I do. You ain't got to tell me, man. I do all of that. What are you talking about? I do all that anyway. I went 25 miles an hour for 8 straight hours. I think I live streamed it too on a fucking sheet of ice in West Texas. 8 hours, 25 miles an hour. If I went 26, my trailer would start to fishtail. I'd look in my mirror and my trailer would be trying to come around. 25 was the fastest I could go. Past all kind of rigs in the Permian Basin. in Texas, Midland, Odessa, Texas. Rolled over. Rolled right the fuck over on a sheet of ice like a bunch of bozos. And that's the whole Benton shows up somewhere with his neurodivergence, can't do something in the proper amount of time. Well, everybody else does it. And yeah, and then there's a sheet of ice and everybody else rolls over and I keep going. So exactly, everybody else does it. And then there's ice and snow and everybody else slides off the road and I just keep driving. So yeah, exactly. Everybody else, everybody else, everybody else. And well, in this case, everybody else stays on the interstate, gets into gigantic traffic jams, and I ended up taking the back roads. And man, the locals were having wrecks on the back roads. I said, man, this is crazy. Everybody's drunk. Now, I know there's always been drunks on the roads. Everybody's drunk and on pills. Everybody. Now, I know it's not everybody, but it's crazy, dude. I'm looking at some of these wrecks on these back roads, and it's like, these are all locals. They're all familiar with the area. This was Illinois. They drive in the snow every year. It ain't Arkansas. It's Illinois. It fucking snows. And they were crashing. So this is fucking crazy. I mean, like, I think I passed like 3 wrecks. I don't know. Maybe they were all visiting for the holidays. I don't fucking know. Weird, man. It's weird. And yeah, pretty much anytime there's winter weather, yeah, people slide off into the ditch. This was barely anything. I'm telling you. Now, again, it did snow heavy for a couple of hours. But even before it was just, when it was light snow, they just immediately started crashing. And sliding around and trying to get me to hit them. It's nuts. This is the first, and I've skipped a lot of winters. I've really only driven 2 winters. And, well, maybe 3, but I drove my entire first winter as a rookie, and then I'm trying to think. I think one other winter I just got lucky and like was almost never in it for whatever reason. And then with ART, I drove in it quite a bit. But I only worked there for like 2 months, so it wasn't even a full winter. But I started in December, so it was winter weather the whole time I was working there. It might have been 3 months. Either way, I was down south enough that I didn't drive it that much. But I was driving around Pennsylvania and, you know, waiting for because they shut down. They closed the whole state to commercial motor vehicles pretty much every time it snows. So, you know, whenever they said it was legal, I drove. I didn't see hardly anybody wrecking or sliding off the road. And yeah, I understand it was southern Illinois, but still, I mean, there should be enough people around who know how to drive in the ice and snow. Incompetence, a bunch of drunk incompetence. And people are degenerating, man, and I can tell my own, you know, some of my own abilities have decreased, my own cognitive abilities. And, you know, what has the pandemic done to people? You know, certainly, you know, there's been issues with cognition and, you know, neurological effects, that and whatever the jab's done to people. Meanwhile, I don't know anybody who's passed away from the pandemic or the jabs. How is that possible? To be told how deadly it's going to be, but then I don't know anybody that's passed away from it. Either one of them. But whatever. Now we have yet another car, fourth day in a row of people passing me and then can't maintain their speed, and they get right in front of me and then go slower. 4th day in a row of this. So now I'm in the fast lane in order to not tailgate the person that just passed me. This is America, folks. Society's gotten so sick, I guess they just want me to check out their ass. I mean, does anybody even drive the speed limit anymore? Is that how much of a pussy nation this is? Because we're on the turnpike. The speed limit's 75. I'm going 71 because it's the fastest I can go. And I'm keeping up with these people. Does anybody even drive the speed limit anymore? So I remember I used to go 10 over in Arkansas, and I'd pass just about everybody, but the majority of the traffic was at least going the speed limit. These people don't even go the speed limit anymore. This is crazy. Of course, a lot of them at this time of the morning are just trying not to get a DUI, so I get that, but even still. Oh, yeah. Apricots. I had red grapes, blueberries, and apricots. Nutrition, nutrition, nutrition. Of course, the media's got everybody scared of sugar and carbs. Well, it turns out as long as you don't combine them with fat, you're good. It's totally fine. Oh, diabetes. I don't know, man. I've eaten a shitload of sugar. Not always, but it's never made me diabetic, but whatever. whatever. Say, how do you know? Well, I have a DOT medical card. They test me for it. That's how I know. Oh, yeah. Oh. Good times. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see what happens with this job. How this all shakes out. They've always got loads they need covered, so I'm guessing their intention is to bring me back to Chicago so I can quit. But the moment they need a load covered, they'll just try to keep getting me to keep working. So I don't fucking know. We'll see. I guess I came out the other end of this exhaustion. I can't tell if it's gone or not, but there's been a couple of times where it felt like it was gone, but it wasn't. And I didn't think that it was. So right now it feels like maybe it's gone, but it might not be. And again, I don't have the motivation to run as hard as they want me to run. Meanwhile, I know because of my experience that, what's considered running hard at, more conventional type of companies, to these guys, it's just more or less you're slacking off, I think. I don't even really want to drive 3,000 miles if I can help it. And I think the last month now, it's been every week I've had probably, I'm up to where it looks like it's going to be 3,800 a week if I keep driving anyway, which I'm not planning to. Imagine if I only had to do 3,000 a week. I think that's what happened with Sun Transportation Systems, because I said that was easy, and it was because I think I was closer to 3,000, and I got to, I didn't have to deviate from my sleep schedule too much. This one, my sleep schedule's been all over the place, and they've had me doing a lot of pickups, a lot of multi-stop stuff, a lot of multi-pickups stuff, which is, just a lot of extra bullshit. And then claiming they're paying me on a day rate with a minimum, which that may be true, but if more often than not I'm driving 3,800 fucking miles and doing all these extra stops, for the same pay. I mean, it's like, what are we even talking about? While they just straight up gaslit me and said everything over everything over 3,000 miles is 60 cents a mile. Well, hell, it might as well be $10 a mile if they're not going to pay me for it. I mean, what's the fucking difference? $1 million a mile, $1 billion a mile. If you don't pay me, what's the difference? Oh, why don't you talk to them about it? Why? So I can be gaslit more? I mean, what's the point? For what? They know they're supposed to pay me. You think it's just a mistake that they're not paying me? Oh yeah, our bad. We meant to pay you that. We just failed to. Oh, okay, sure. I'm sure that's what happened. I'm sure that's it. Anyway, I guess I'm out of here. I can't think of too much else. So, bye.